Welcome to Brada Tales. Tonight, prepare yourself for hours of captivating adventures and enchanting discoveries as we take you into a world where fairy tale fantasy blends seamlessly with the calming sound of rain, perfect for unwinding. Before you drift off, let us know where you're tuning in from and the time in the comments below. If these stories spark your imagination, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Now settle in, get comfortable, and let your mind wander freely. The Forest of Forgotten Shadows. Have you ever felt the pull of a place long forgotten, a whisper in the night calling you where others dare not go? This was how the story of the Forest of Forgotten Shadows began. Deep in a quiet village, hidden between rolling hills and silver rivers, lived a young hunter named Eirik. He had always been known for his sharp instincts and courage, though his heart was gentler than his strong, calloused hands suggested. Eirik's life had been simple, but tonight he sat by his sister Alina's bedside, her breathing faint and shallow. A fever, mysterious and relentless, had taken hold of her, and nothing the village healer tried seemed to help. Desperation clung to the air, and Eirik knew he could not just sit and watch her suffer. He needed a cure, a way to save her, at any cost. Legends told of a rare herb, the moonshadow blossom, hidden in the depths of the dark forest nearby. Said to only bloom under the light of the crescent moon, it was known for its healing powers. But this forest was no ordinary one. The villagers called it cursed, warning that the shadows within were not merely darkness but something alive, ancient, and watchful. Despite their fears, Eirik decided. When the sun dipped below the horizon, he would enter the forest. He had no other choice. Alina's life depended on it. As twilight settled over the village, a sense of unease stirred in the hearts of those who had heard of Eirik's decision. Whispers filled the air, warning him to reconsider, pleading with him to wait for sunrise. But Eirik's mind was set, and his eyes held a determination that neither fear nor superstition could sway. He gathered what little he had, a sturdy bow, a hunting knife, and a small pouch with enough dried meat to last a night. His thoughts lingered on Alina, her face pale and damp with fever, her small hand limp in his. Memories of her laughter, her bright eyes following him eagerly through the fields as they played together in their youth, flooded his mind. She was all the family he had left. How could he let her slip away without a fight? As the sun dipped below the horizon, the villagers retreated into their homes, drawing their shutters tight. The familiar sounds of the day faded, and an eerie silence settled over the village. The forest loomed on the edge of the fields, dark and brooding as if waiting for him. Shadows clung to its trees, twisting and stretching with the last slivers of light, their shapes almost too human, watching, listening. Eirik took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the forest's presence pressing on him even from afar. He stepped forward, his footsteps crunching on the dried leaves. The path to the forest was narrow and winding, overgrown with brambles and nettles that snagged at his clothes as if they too were trying to hold him back. The closer Eirik came to the edge of the forest, the thicker the air grew. A damp, heavy mist curled around the trunks of ancient trees, swirling like ghostly hands, welcoming him into the unknown. Each step felt slower than the last, his heart pounding harder with every pace. It wasn't only his fear of the forest's legends. It was as though something within the shadows themselves was watching, waiting, pulling him in. He paused for a moment, glancing back at the village, where distant lights flickered in the homes of those who had already locked themselves away for the night. He imagined his neighbors whispering, praying that he would turn back, praying that they wouldn't have to see him again as a haunted spirit, if he returned at all. But he pushed these thoughts aside. Alina needed him. With a deep breath, he stepped past the first trees. Inside the forest, the light faded almost entirely, with only faint silver beams breaking through the canopy, casting strange patterns on the forest floor. Eirik shivered as he took in the sight around him. This was no ordinary forest. Each tree seemed ancient, gnarled, its roots twisting in unnatural shapes, some arching up from the ground like claws frozen in time. Then a sudden whisper of wind rustled the leaves, breaking the silence. Eirik stopped, tightening his grip on his bow, his senses on high alert. The sound was soft, almost a sigh, as though the forest itself had breathed out to greet him. Or was it a warning? Eirik strained his ears, trying to make sense of the forest's strange sounds. The sighing seemed to fade into the rustling leaves, leaving only an unsettling silence in its wake. He told himself it was only the wind, but deep down he felt otherwise. Each shadow around him seemed to thicken, stretching out in his direction as if drawn by his presence. He could feel their weight in the air, the chill that seemed to seep through his skin and cling to his bones. Determined to stay focused, Eirik pushed deeper into the forest. He remembered the healer's words about the moonshadow blossom. It bloomed only under a crescent moon, and only in the heart of the forest, where the oldest trees grew in a thick grove. It was said to glow with a silver light, unmistakable even in the darkest of nights. But Eirik had yet to see anything that even hinted at the blossom's existence. As he walked, an uneasy rhythm took hold. Every few steps he felt the urge to glance behind him, convinced he'd see someone, or something, following him. But each time he turned, he found only darkness and shifting shadows. Was it his own fear playing tricks, or was there really something lurking beyond his vision? Suddenly, the silence was broken by a faint whisper, so soft it could have been mistaken for the rustle of leaves. But this was no ordinary sound. It was a voice, low and breathy, almost pleading. Eirik froze, his heart hammering. The whisper came again, clearer this time, as if calling his name, Eirik. He felt a chill crawl down his spine, but he steeled himself. Whatever awaited him, whatever spirit or shadow was calling, he would not turn back. Alina's life depended on him. Eirik pressed on, each step heavier than the last as he moved deeper into the forest's embrace. The darkness seemed alive here, pulsating with an energy he could feel in his very bones. He tried to ignore the voice that had whispered his name, convincing himself it was his mind playing tricks. But as he continued, more whispers began to rise around him, faint and disjointed, like fragments of forgotten memories. "Help! Save me!" the voices breathed, blending with the sighing of the trees and the shivering leaves. Some sounded like children, others old and weary, their voices cracked as though they hadn't spoken in centuries. The sounds crawled into his ears and wrapped themselves around his mind, filling his heart with a strange mixture of dread and sorrow. These voices were pleading as if bound to something dark, their cries hidden beneath the thick canopy and layers of soil. Eirik shook his head, trying to silence them, but the voices only grew louder, more insistent. Shadows seemed to shift closer, their forms twisting along the ground like reaching hands. One shadow, darker and more defined than the others, slithered toward him, pooling at his feet. He could feel its icy presence rising through his boots, sending chills up his legs, rooting him in place. The hunter's mind raced, every instinct screaming at him to turn back, to run. But the memory of Alina's pale face flashed before him, her weak smile, her whispered promise that she'd be fine if he returned with the herb. The thought gave him strength, forcing his feet to move again. Clutching his bow tightly, he stepped over the dark pool of shadow, each step an act of defiance against the forest itself. But as he moved forward, the whispers faded, replaced by an even deeper silence, one that pressed in on him like the weight of 1,000 secrets. The silence was almost tangible now, thick and heavy, as if the air itself had conspired to steal away every sound. Even his own breath felt muffled, swallowed by the oppressive stillness around him. Eirik's steps slowed as he became hyper-aware of every crackle beneath his boots, every faint snap of twigs echoing unnaturally through the forest. His eyes adjusted to the darkness, picking up strange, faint shapes in the periphery, branches gnarled and twisted into unnatural angles, roots coiled in patterns that looked almost like faces frozen in silent agony. The deeper he ventured, the more the forest seemed to transform, the trees appearing to grow closer together, their branches intertwining in such a way that they blotted out the moonlight entirely. Here, even his shadow seemed distorted, stretched and bent as if trying to pull away from him. After what felt like an eternity, he stopped to catch his breath, his pulse still racing. That's when he noticed it, an unnatural chill radiating from somewhere ahead, accompanied by a dim, silvery glow, faint but unmistakable. His heart leapt. The Moonshadow Blossom. He felt a flicker of hope, a light in the sea of darkness, as he slowly crept toward the source of the glow. But as he drew closer, the glow began to waver, as if flickering like a distant candle in the wind. Shadows shifted in its light, long and thin, seeming to bend toward him, stretching as if to bar his way. He could make out more shapes in the dim light now, wisps of mist gathering into vague humanoid forms, each with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce the darkness, watching his every move. They stood in silent vigil, neither advancing nor retreating, but their presence alone sent a wave of dread through him. Eirik clutched his bow tightly, his knuckles white, but his resolve hardened. Alina was waiting for him. He took a step forward, and then another, his eyes never leaving the silvery glow ahead, ignoring the shadows that seemed to close in with each passing second. He whispered a promise to himself, to his sister, "I will not turn back." But the forest had other plans. As Eirik stepped forward, the silvery glow flared brighter, revealing what lay ahead. In the center of a small clearing stood the Moonshadow Blossom, delicate yet radiant, its petals shimmering like frost under moonlight. The flower's beauty was otherworldly, captivating, and for a moment Eirik forgot the shadows, the voices, the fear. This was what he had come for, the very thing that could save Alina. He reached out, compelled by the sight of the blossom's soft glow. But as his hand hovered over the blossom, an intense chill seeped into his bones, rooting him in place. The ground around the flower darkened, tendrils of shadow creeping up from the earth and curling around the stem of the blossom, almost protectively. The mist thickened, and a shape began to emerge before him, rising from the darkness. It took on the form of a woman, her face pale and sorrowful, her eyes hollow yet deep with sorrow. Her figure flickered, almost transparent, as if held together only by the shadows that clung to her. "Turn back," she whispered, her voice layered with echoes as though many voices spoke through her at once. "This place is not meant for the living." Eirik's heart pounded, but he held his ground. "I need this flower. My sister, she's dying," he replied, his voice steady, though his insides churned with fear. The ghostly figure looked at him with a pity that cut through his resolve, her sorrowful gaze filled with a pain beyond words. "Many have come before you, seeking the blossom's light," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. "But the price of the forest is not one willingly paid." Eirik tightened his grip on his bow, steeling himself. "If there's a price, I'll pay it. Just tell me what I must do." The woman's form wavered, and for a moment, her face twisted with anguish, as if she herself were trapped between worlds, bound by some terrible fate. "Once we too believed we could escape this place," she said, her voice barely more than a sigh. "But the shadows claimed us, just as they will claim you." Eirik swallowed hard, his eyes never leaving hers. But his mind was made up. There was no turning back now. The ghostly figure lingered, her sorrowful eyes fixed on Eirik. She lifted a trembling, translucent hand and pointed toward the Moonshadow Blossom, its silvery glow pulsing in the shadowed clearing. "If you wish to take it, you must act quickly," she whispered, her voice brittle. "The shadows will not be patient, and they do not forgive trespassers." Her form began to waver, dissolving into wisps of darkness that twisted and coiled around the blossom. Eirik took a deep breath, his heart pounding. This was his chance, perhaps his only chance. He dropped to one knee and reached for the blossom, carefully wrapping his fingers around the delicate stem. Just as he pulled it from the ground, an icy wind whipped through the clearing, and the whispers around him turned into cries, pained, angry, rising like a storm. Shadows erupted from the ground, swirling in chaotic shapes that clawed toward him, their hollow eyes burning with a menacing light. Eirik sprang to his feet, clutching the flower against his chest, and darted toward the trees. He could hear the shadows closing in behind him, their distorted forms stretching out to grab him, their voices shrieking with fury. Each step felt like wading through thick mud, as though the forest itself was trying to hold him back. His only thought was of escape, of making it out of the cursed forest and back to Alina. He burst through the trees, his lungs burning as he pushed forward, desperate to leave the shadows behind. Only when he crossed the edge of the forest and felt the cool night air of the open field did he finally stop. Turning back, he saw the shadows writhing at the forest's edge, unable to follow him beyond its borders. They hovered there, watching him with empty, hollow eyes, as though warning him that he had merely borrowed his escape. Eirik tightened his grip on the Moonshadow Blossom. The forest had let him go, for now. But he knew that whatever he'd taken, he hadn't taken it without consequence. Eirik returned to the village under the first light of dawn, his body weary but his spirit filled with purpose. He moved quickly to Alina's side, where she lay in restless sleep, her forehead damp with fever. The healer had prepared a small basin with water, and Eirik crushed the petals of the Moonshadow Blossom, letting its shimmering essence mix with the cool liquid. He dabbed the mixture on Alina's forehead, whispering a quiet prayer that this would be enough to bring her back to health. The effect was immediate. The fever broke, her breathing steadied, and a faint color returned to her cheeks. She stirred, opening her eyes just enough to see him, her gaze soft and grateful. Eirik's heart soared with relief, his fears momentarily forgotten as he watched her drift back into a peaceful sleep. He had done it, he had saved her. But as he turned to leave her room, exhaustion settling over him, a chill ran down his spine. He felt a presence, a coldness, lurking just beyond his vision. Shadows clung to the corners of the room, darker and denser than they should have been, and he could swear he heard faint whispers, echoing words he couldn't quite make out. Eirik's hand instinctively tightened around the amulet he wore, an old charm for protection. He forced himself to shake off the feeling. It was only the fatigue, the remnants of fear from his journey. He had escaped the forest and Alina was safe. That was all that mattered. But as the day wore on, strange things began to happen in the village. Shadows seemed to linger longer than usual, stretching out in unnatural ways, their edges shifting as if alive. Eirik's neighbors began to whisper of strange sounds in the night, of cold drafts even when no windows were open. The village animals grew skittish, barking and braying at things unseen. Eirik tried to ignore it, telling himself it was mere coincidence. But he couldn't shake the feeling that the forest had followed him back, that its shadows had marked him, watching and waiting. He hadn't yet escaped its grasp. Days passed, and with each sunrise the atmosphere in the village grew heavier. Eirik remained vigilant, feeling the shadows closing in even as he busied himself with the daily tasks of hunting and gathering. Alina was recovering well, but he could see the concern etched in her features whenever she glanced out the window, her brow furrowed at the unusual happenings outside. "Eirik," she said one morning as they shared a simple meal, her voice soft but steady. "Something doesn't feel right. The villagers speak of odd occurrences, whispers in the night. You were gone for so long in the forest, did you bring something back with you?" Eirik hesitated, memories of the ghostly figure and the swirling shadows flooding back to him. He couldn't let fear touch her, she had been through enough. "It's just the stories," he replied, forcing a smile. "People love to talk. The forest is a strange place, and now that I've returned, they're just anxious." But deep down he knew the truth. The shadows had followed him, their presence lurking at the edges of his mind, weaving through the very fabric of his life. That night, as the village settled into its uneasy slumber, Eirik decided he had to confront it. He could feel the whispers growing louder, a cacophony of voices clawing at his sanity, and he knew he couldn't let the darkness take hold of him or his sister. He slipped out into the night, armed with only his bow and the remnants of the Moonshadow Blossom, which he had carefully preserved. As he approached the edge of the forest, the air thickened with tension. The shadows loomed like living things, watching him with a hungry intensity. "Come then," he called out, his voice echoing in the stillness, filled with a mix of bravado and desperation. "If you wish to take me, show yourselves." The forest answered with a sudden gust of wind, swirling leaves and dust around him, but no tangible threat emerged. Eirik stepped closer, the moon casting a ghostly glow over the path he had once traveled. The whispers faded, replaced by a foreboding silence that settled deep in his bones. He felt the chill wrap around him, and for the briefest moment, he thought he saw a familiar face among the shadows, the sorrowful woman who had warned him in the clearing. Her eyes bore into his, filled with an urgency that sent shivers through him. "Eirik," she whispered, her voice weaving through the air, barely audible. "You must understand. The shadows do not rest. They hunger for what you carry." He raised his bow, scanning the darkened trees, ready for anything. "I carry nothing but my courage," he declared, trying to sound more resolute than he felt. "If you seek something, you'll have to take it from me." The shadows began to shift, swirling around him, forming vague shapes that danced in and out of focus. He could feel their coldness creeping into his skin, and the voices grew louder, a tide of despair washing over him. "Help us, free us, do not forget," they cried in unison, their echoes piercing the night. Eirik's heart raced. He knew he couldn't stand idle. The forest shadows were not merely phantoms. They were trapped souls, bound by something dark and powerful. The realization struck him like a bolt of lightning. He had to find a way to help them, to break the curse that held them captive, even if it meant returning to the heart of the forest where he had first encountered their suffering. Summoning all his strength, he steadied his breath. "I will find a way," he vowed, his voice strong amidst the swirling chaos. "I will free you." With determination rekindled in his heart, Eirik turned away from the darkened woods, ready to seek answers and confront the darkness that had invaded his life. It would be a perilous journey, but one he had to take. For Alina, for the lost souls of the forest, and for his own peace, he had to return. Eirik returned to the village with a heavy heart and a resolute mind, determined to learn more about the darkness that had followed him from the forest. He knew that simply returning to the depths of the woods without understanding the nature of the shadows would be a reckless move. Thus, he sought out the village elder, a woman named Greta, known for her wisdom and knowledge of old tales. Greta's home was filled with the scent of herbs and the faint glow of candles flickering in the corners. When Eirik entered, she looked up from her work, her eyes narrowing in concern as she saw the weariness etched across his face. "Eirik, what troubles you?" she asked, her voice steady and soothing. He explained his journey into the forest of forgotten shadows, the encounter with the ghostly woman, and the unsettling events unfolding in the village. Greta listened intently, nodding slowly as he spoke. When he finished, she sighed deeply, her expression grave. "The forest is a realm of ancient magic and lost souls," she began, her voice filled with reverence. "Many years ago, the spirits of those wronged were bound there, imprisoned by a dark force. The moonshadow blossom is the key, a symbol of both hope and despair. It is said that whoever possesses it has the power to free those trapped within the shadows, but it also draws the darkness closer, seeking to reclaim what is its own." Eirik's heart sank. "Then I have doomed us all by taking the flower?" "No," Greta replied firmly. "You have brought hope, but you must act wisely. To break the curse, you need to return to the heart of the forest, where the shadows are strongest. You must find the source of their suffering and confront it." "What is the source?" Eirik asked, desperation creeping into his voice. She hesitated, her gaze distant. "It is believed to be an ancient spirit, once a guardian of the forest, corrupted by pain and betrayal. It dwells in a hidden grove, shrouded in mist and darkness. Only by confronting it can you hope to free the trapped souls and rid the forest of its torment." Eirik felt the weight of the task ahead. He needed allies. Can you help me prepare? I will need supplies and guidance for this journey. Greta nodded, rising to gather herbs and potions that would aid him. You will need protection from the shadows and the strength to confront the Guardian. But be warned, Eirik, the path will not be easy. The forest will test your courage, and the shadows will seek to exploit your fears. As she worked, Eirik felt a flicker of doubt creeping in. The shadows had haunted him since his return. They whispered of fears and failures, tugging at the edges of his mind. But he couldn't afford to waver now. He had to protect Alina and free those trapped in the darkness. After gathering the supplies, Greta placed a small, intricately carved amulet in his palm. This will shield you from the whispers of the shadows. Wear it close to your heart. Remember, Eirik, you are not alone in this fight. The spirits will guide you if you listen. With a sense of purpose ignited within him, Eirik set out once again toward the forest. He felt a mix of fear and determination, the shadows now a palpable presence as he approached the treeline. Each step was heavy with the weight of his mission, but he knew he couldn't turn back. The whispers grew louder as he crossed the threshold, becoming a symphony of despair, tugging at his heart. Eirik, help us, free us. He pressed onward, drawing strength from the amulet against his chest. As he ventured deeper into the woods, he felt the shadows swirl around him, alive and restless. The path was familiar yet foreboding, each twist and turn a reminder of the terror he had faced before. But this time he was armed with knowledge and purpose. He would face the darkness, confront the ancient spirit, and bring peace to the souls bound within the forest. With each step, he vowed that he would not falter, that he would reclaim the light from the shadows that sought to consume him. As Eirik moved deeper into the forest, the atmosphere thickened, and the trees closed in around him like a protective shroud. The shadows twisted and danced among the branches, their shapes shifting to form grotesque faces that sneered and howled, echoing his deepest fears. He tightened his grip on the bough, every instinct screaming for him to turn back. Focus, he whispered to himself, recalling Greta's words. You are not alone. He touched the amulet resting against his heart, feeling a slight warmth emanating from it. It reminded him of Alina's trusting gaze, of the promise he had made to protect her. As he journeyed further, the familiar sounds of the forest faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. The gentle rustle of leaves, the chirp of crickets, all vanished into an oppressive stillness that made every breath feel heavy. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the trees, whispering incoherently, words tumbling over each other in a frantic rush. Help us, they cried, a chorus of lost souls. The chilling wind wrapped around him, urging him to turn back, to flee. But Eirik stood firm, his resolve steeled by the knowledge of his mission. After what felt like hours of navigating through the oppressive darkness, he stumbled upon a small clearing. In its center lay a shimmering pool, its surface reflecting the pale glow of the moonlight filtering through the branches. Eirik stepped closer, the air thick with an unexplainable energy. The pool seemed to pulse, drawing him in, and for a moment he thought he heard his sister's voice calling from its depths, a sweet melody laced with desperation. Alina, he gasped, leaning forward, the shadows flickering ominously around him. The surface of the pool rippled as if responding to his presence, and the whispers grew more frantic, urging him to listen. Beware the darkness, it seeks to trap you. Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows at the edge of the clearing, tall and imposing, cloaked in darkness. Eirik's breath hitched in his throat as he recognized the guardian he had come to confront. The figure stood with its back to him, shrouded in a mist that obscured its features. But even from afar, he could feel the overwhelming sadness emanating from it. Why do you disturb my solitude? The guardian's voice boomed, echoing off the trees, deep and resonant like thunder. It turned slowly, revealing a face twisted by sorrow, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. You carry the Moonshadow Blossom. You are foolish to think you can wield its power. Eirik steadied himself, his heart racing. I seek to free the souls trapped in this forest. They deserve peace, as does the guardian who was once their protector. The guardian's expression shifted, sorrow mingling with rage. Peace, it snarled. I am bound to this place, a prisoner of my own grief. The shadows do not wish for freedom. They seek only to consume. Eirik took a step forward, his voice rising above the storm of whispers. I can help you. I can help all of you if you allow me to. The shadows can be defeated. I've come prepared. The guardian's laughter filled the clearing, hollow and chilling. You think you can save me? You have no idea what lies within the heart of the forest. You are but a mortal, blinded by your naivety. Eirik felt a surge of determination. I may be mortal, but I will not give up. I will confront the shadows and free the lost souls. With that, he reached into his pack and drew forth the remains of the Moonshadow Blossom. The petals glowed with an ethereal light, illuminating the clearing. The guardian's eyes widened, and for the first time, a flicker of hope crossed its tortured face. Wait, the guardian commanded, a tremor of uncertainty in its voice. You wield the power to either free me or doom us all. If you choose to use that blossom, you must understand the consequences. I am ready, Eirik replied, his voice steady. I will not let fear dictate my actions. I choose to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. As he spoke, the shadows began to swirl around him, closing in with a ferocity that made the air vibrate. Eirik felt their icy touch creeping toward him, a cacophony of despair and anger rising from the darkness. But he stood firm, holding the blossom aloft, its light cutting through the encroaching gloom. By the light of the Moonshadow Blossom, I call upon the spirits trapped in these shadows. Rise and reclaim your peace. The shadows recoiled, howling in anguish as the glow intensified. Eirik felt the power surge within him, the spirits answering his call, breaking free from the bonds of despair that had held them captive for so long. He could see their forms, ghostly figures swirling in the light, their faces filled with longing and gratitude. But just as victory seemed within reach, the guardian's expression darkened. You must be careful, Eirik. The darkness will not yield without a fight. The shadows lunged at him, a tide of darkness seeking to extinguish the light. Eirik braced himself for the confrontation that lay ahead, knowing that he had awakened something powerful and dangerous. The true battle for the souls of the forest had begun, and he would need every ounce of strength and courage to prevail. The shadows writhed and twisted like serpents, a vortex of despair determined to engulf him. Eirik stood at the center of the clearing, the Moonshadow Blossom glowing fiercely in his grip, illuminating the faces of the trapped spirits. Their expressions mirrored both hope and fear, an echo of the struggle that lay ahead. Now, Eirik shouted, directing his voice toward the swirling darkness. I command you to listen. You do not belong here, bound by your own rage and sorrow. You can be free. As he spoke, the shadows recoiled, shrieking as if his words pierced them like arrows. The guardian, watching from the edge of the clearing, seemed momentarily stunned by the sheer intensity of Eirik's resolve. You do not know the darkness you face, it warned. It is alive, a force of nature that cannot simply be commanded. Then I will show it light, Eirik replied, his heart pounding with determination. I will not falter. With that, he raised the Moonshadow Blossom higher, and the light exploded from its petals in a radiant burst. It pierced through the shadows, scattering them momentarily, revealing the tortured faces of the souls that had been trapped for so long. They looked at him with a mixture of despair and hope, their eyes glistening with unspoken gratitude. Find your strength, Eirik cried. Remember who you were, remember your lives. You are not forgotten. In response, the spirits began to rally, their ethereal forms swirling around him, merging with the light of the blossom. Eirik felt their energy flow through him, a tide of collective memory and emotion that bolstered his resolve. The shadows began to writhe more violently, thrashing against the light, howling in fury. "No!" the guardian roared, its voice echoing with a desperate urgency. "They are waking. You must hold them back." Eirik closed his eyes, feeling the pull of the darkness as it clawed at his mind, trying to dredge up his fears. Images of failure, visions of Alina suffering without him, flashed before his eyes. For a brief moment, he wavered, but then he felt the warmth of the spirits surrounding him, their strength infusing him with courage. "No!" he shouted again, forcing his eyes open. "I am Eirik, and I will not yield." The shadows, sensing his renewed determination, surged forward in a tidal wave of darkness, threatening to engulf him whole. Eirik dug his heels into the earth, channeling every ounce of strength he had. "By the light of the Moonshadow Blossom, I command you to retreat." As the blossom pulsed with a vibrant light, he thrust it forward, aiming directly at the heart of the swirling shadows. The moment the light made contact, a brilliant explosion erupted, illuminating the entire clearing in a blinding radiance. The shadows shrieked in agony, their forms twisting and contorting as they were forced back, retreating from the power of the blossom. Eirik felt the spirits surge forward, their combined essence breaking the hold of the darkness, filling the air with a chorus of voices singing out in triumph. "We are free. We are free." But the battle was far from over. The guardian, now transformed by the light, stepped closer, its features softer yet filled with a resolute power. "You have awakened the light within them, but the darkness will not surrender without a fight. It will retaliate." As if in response to the guardian's warning, the ground trembled and a deep, resonant growl emanated from the depths of the forest. The shadows began to coalesce into a single monstrous form, towering above them, an embodiment of pure malice and despair. It bore no face, just an endless void where its features should have been, and it radiated an aura of suffocating darkness. Eirik's heart raced. "What do we do now?" he asked, panic creeping into his voice. The guardian looked at him, its eyes now bright and fierce. "You have already begun to weaken it, but it will require all of us, both you and the spirits, to confront this darkness. You must not fight alone." The spirits gathered around Eirik, their faces resolute, each one shimmering with the remnants of their once vibrant lives. Eirik could feel their presence, their stories intertwined with his own, lending him strength. "Together we can push it back," he declared, feeling the energy of the blossom radiating warmth in his hands. The guardian nodded, raising its arms to the sky. "Channel your energy through the blossom and let the spirits guide your aim. We will face the darkness as one." With that, they formed a circle, the guardian standing tall at the forefront, Eirik beside it, surrounded by the ethereal forms of the spirits. They closed their eyes, feeling the energy swirl around them, the light of the Moonshadow Blossom pulsing in rhythm with their hearts. "Now," the guardian commanded, and together they unleashed a wave of light toward the monstrous shadow. Eirik focused all his willpower, channeling every ounce of strength as the light surged forth, brightening the forest with an intensity that had never been seen before. The darkness screeched, its form distorting as the light pierced through it, illuminating the forgotten memories of the souls it had consumed. Eirik could see their faces emerging from the shadows, eyes wide with fear and confusion, but also with newfound determination. "Remember," he cried, his voice echoing in the depths of the night. "Remember who you are. Remember your strength." As the light intensified, the spirits began to coalesce, their forms merging with the brilliance, fueling the attack against the darkness. The monstrous shadow writhed and shrieked, its form beginning to unravel under the onslaught. Eirik felt the collective energy surge through him, a rush of hope and courage flooding his veins. "We can do this," he shouted, gripping the blossom tightly. "Together." With one final push, the light erupted from them in a blinding flash, engulfing the shadow entirely. The darkness let out a deafening roar, a sound filled with rage and despair, as it began to dissipate, fragmenting into tendrils of shadow that evaporated into the night. Eirik felt the weight of the shadows lift, the oppressive atmosphere of the forest slowly fading away. The spirits surrounded him, their forms glowing brighter as they embraced their freedom, lifting the curse that had bound them for so long. As the last remnants of darkness vanished, Eirik collapsed to his knees, exhausted but triumphant. The guardian stood beside him, now transformed, its sorrowful visage replaced with one of peace and gratitude. "You have done it, Eirik. You have freed us all." The spirits danced around them, their voices now a harmonious melody that filled the forest, lifting the veil of sorrow that had shrouded it for so long. Eirik looked up, tears of joy streaming down his face. "We did it," he whispered, a sense of overwhelming relief washing over him. But as he turned to celebrate their victory, he felt a lingering sense of foreboding deep within his gut. The shadows had been vanquished, but he knew that darkness never truly disappeared, it only lay in wait. In that moment he made a vow. This was only the beginning, and he would be ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. For Alina, for the spirits, and for himself, he would continue to fight against the darkness, ensuring that the forest of forgotten shadows would never again fall into despair. And as the moon rose high above the trees, casting its silver light over the clearing, Eirik knew that his journey was far from over. The path ahead would be filled with trials, but he had found strength not just in himself, but in the bonds of friendship forged in the heart of darkness. As dawn broke over the horizon, the first light of day spilled into the clearing, banishing the remnants of the night's darkness. Eirik rose to his feet, the energy of the moonshadow blossom still tingling in his hands. The guardian, now bathed in the soft glow of morning, turned toward him, its features softened and a hint of a smile gracing its lips. "You have proven yourself today, Eirik," it said, its voice steady and calm. "But there is much you must still learn. The shadows you faced were but one part of a greater puzzle that binds this forest." Eirik nodded, still catching his breath. "I understand. There are more souls that need help, aren't there?" "Yes," the guardian replied, its gaze drifting toward the trees that lined the edge of the clearing. "The shadows are gone for now, but their influence lingers. They are tethered to memories, both sweet and bitter. To truly free this forest, we must confront the memories that hold the remaining spirits captive." Eirik felt a surge of determination. "Then let's do it. I won't stop until every soul is at peace." With that, the guardian led him deeper into the forest, the lush greenery slowly giving way to dense thickets and misty paths that twisted and turned like the memories they sought to uncover. As they walked, Eirik became aware of the palpable tension in the air, the weight of unfulfilled stories pressing against him like an invisible barrier. "Every spirit has a story," the guardian explained, its voice carrying a hint of reverence. "Each one lost to the shadows carries a piece of this forest's history. You will need to help them remember who they are and what binds them to this place." "Is that how we can set them free?" Eirik asked, curious. "By helping them remember?" "Yes, but be cautious, Eirik. Some memories are not easily unlocked, and the shadows will not take kindly to our meddling. They will seek to defend their hold over these spirits, to keep them trapped in their anguish." As they continued onward, the trees began to shift, forming a canopy that darkened the path ahead. A sense of foreboding settled around them, and Eirik could feel the air grow colder, as if the shadows themselves were closing in, lurking just beyond the edges of sight. "What is this place?" he asked, glancing around nervously. "This is the Grove of Remembrance," the guardian replied. "Here lies the heart of the forest, where the memories of those who once lived are entwined with the very soil. But it is also where the shadows cling most fiercely." As they stepped into the grove, Eirik was struck by a sight that was both beautiful and haunting. Flowers of every color bloomed vibrantly among the twisted roots of ancient trees, their petals glistening with dew like tears caught in the dawn light. Yet, amidst the beauty, he saw shadows swirling around the base of the trees, dark tendrils weaving in and out, seemingly drinking in the colors and light. Suddenly, a soft sobbing echoed through the grove, drawing Eirik's attention. He turned to see a figure hunched against a tree, its form flickering like a candle caught in the wind. It was a spirit, a young woman, her hair flowing like strands of smoke, her expression one of profound sorrow. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. "I cannot remember. I cannot find my way." Eirik stepped forward, his heart aching for her plight. "What is your name?" he asked gently. "Can you tell me who you are?" Her gaze met his, a flicker of recognition sparking in her eyes. I was called Lyra," she murmured, her voice gaining strength. "I lived by the river. I had a family, but I lost them." Eirik knelt beside her, sensing the weight of her memories pressing down on her spirit. "What happened, Lyra? Can you remember?" As he spoke, the shadows began to churn more violently, sensing the awakening of her memory. "No," Lyra cried, clutching her head in pain. "I can't. Every time I try, the darkness pulls me back. It won't let me go." Eirik reached out, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I'm here with you. Together we can fight the darkness. You have to remember for yourself, Lyra. Focus on the love you had for your family." The shadows hissed, swirling around them, a chorus of whispers rising in fury. "Leave her be. She belongs to us." But Eirik held firm, drawing strength from the moonshadow blossom. "You will not take her," he shouted, his voice steady. "Lyra, remember your family. Remember the joy, the laughter. Let that light fill you." Lyra's eyes widened, a spark of defiance igniting within her. "Yes, my family," she whispered, closing her eyes tightly. "I remember their faces, their love." As she spoke, the air crackled with energy, the blossoms' light enveloping them. Eirik could feel the warmth of Lyra's memories breaking through the shadows that sought to consume her. The shadows recoiled, hissing and thrashing as if they were being burned away. "I loved them," Lyra shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "I loved them, and I will not let you take that from me." With a burst of newfound strength, Lyra stood, her form glowing with brilliant light, the shadows dissipating around her. Eirik watched in awe as her spirit transformed, the sorrow lifting from her face, replaced by a radiant smile. "Thank you," she cried, her voice clear and strong now. "Thank you for reminding me of who I am." As Lyra's essence swirled upward, dissipating into the morning light, Eirik felt a rush of exhilaration wash over him. They had freed one spirit, but he knew that many more still lingered in the grove, trapped in their own darkness. But even in the wake of victory, the shadows remained restless, gathering strength from the corners of the grove, waiting for their chance to strike again. Eirik turned to the guardian, who was watching him with pride. "You have done well, Eirik," it said, "but we must not linger. The shadows will fight harder now, as they know we are determined to free the remaining spirits. We must move quickly." Eirik nodded, feeling the weight of their task ahead. "I'm ready," he replied, drawing upon the courage he had found in Lyra's memory. "Let's help the others." Together, they pressed deeper into the grove of remembrance, the beauty of the flowers overshadowed by the ever-looming threat of the darkness. With each step, Eirik felt the connection to the spirits around him grow stronger, their memories intertwining with his own resolve. He knew that the battles to come would be fierce, but he was no longer just a boy on a quest. He was a beacon of hope, ready to fight for the light. As they ventured deeper into the grove, Eirik could feel the atmosphere shifting, the air thick with tension. The vibrant flowers that had seemed so inviting now appeared almost sinister, their petals trembling as if in anticipation of the darkness that loomed nearby. The guardian walked beside him, its presence a steady anchor in the rising storm of emotions swirling around them. "Each spirit we free will add to our strength," the guardian murmured, keeping its voice low as they approached another shadowy figure half hidden among the underbrush. "Remember to encourage them to draw upon their memories. The bond of love is a powerful force against despair." They moved cautiously, mindful of the shadows that coiled protectively around the spirit they approached. This one appeared older, its face etched with lines of sorrow, as if time had weighed heavily upon it. Eirik could see the outline of a man, his features partially obscured by the tendrils of darkness that clung to him. "Can you hear me?" Eirik called out, his heart racing. "We're here to help you." The spirit's head lifted slowly, revealing eyes that shimmered like glass, reflecting fragments of memories that danced just beyond his reach. "Why do you come here?" it rasped, voice cracked with decades of regret. "There is nothing for me but pain." Eirik stepped forward, emboldened by the success he had witnessed with Lyra. "Your name is Eamon, isn't it?" he guessed, remembering the whispers he had heard about this place. "You were a father once. You had a family that loved you. Can you remember them?" The spirit flinched at the mention of family, shadows creeping closer as if trying to envelop him again. "I lost them," Eamon whispered, despair lacing his words. "They were taken by the river during a storm. I could not save them, and now I am cursed to wander forever alone." "No," Eirik shouted, determination surging within him. "You are not alone. Your love for them still exists, and that love can bring you back to the light. You must remember who you were, Eamon. Focus on the warmth of their smiles, the sound of their laughter." With each word, Eirik could feel the shadows tightening around Eamon, but he pressed on. "Think of the moments you shared, the stories you told each other at night, the adventures you had. Those memories are still a part of you." The spirit's eyes flickered with recognition, and Eirik saw a glimmer of light start to break through the darkness. I remember the songs we sang," Eamon murmured, his voice trembling with the effort to recall. "The laughter at the fire, the stories of old." "Yes," Eirik urged, his heart racing. "Let that light fill you. Don't let the shadows take your memories." As Eamon focused, the shadows began to screech in fury, their forms writhing as they struggled to maintain their grip on the spirit. Eirik felt the pressure building around him, a palpable force trying to push them back. "Together we can defeat this darkness," Eirik shouted, lifting the moonshadow blossom high. "By the light of this flower, I command you to release him." The blossom pulsed with energy, the light pouring from it like a river breaking free from a dam. Eamon gasped, his form flickering as if caught in a battle between the light and the dark. I remember their faces," he cried, voice echoing as he fought against the shadows. With a final push, Eamon erupted into a brilliant light, the tendrils of darkness dissolving like mist before the rising sun. Eirik felt the energy surge through him, the spirit's essence merging with the light, illuminating the grove with a warmth that chased away the last remnants of despair. "I'm free." Eamon's voice rang out, now clear and joyous as he soared into the sky, a radiant being of light. "Thank you. Thank you for reminding me of my love." Eirik fell to his knees, breathless with the effort. The guardian placed a hand on his shoulder, pride shining in its eyes. "You have freed another spirit, Eirik. Your bravery inspires them." Eirik looked up, still trembling from the confrontation. "But there are so many more to help. We can't stop now." The guardian nodded solemnly, the atmosphere thickening once more as they pressed on, deeper into the grove where more spirits waited, trapped in their own sorrow. Eirik's resolve only strengthened. He felt the weight of their suffering and the urgency to alleviate it. As they moved through the shadows, the whispers of the spirits echoed around them, a symphony of memories lost and yearned for. He could almost hear their stories calling out to him, urging him to remember the warmth of love and the strength of family. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to tremble, a low rumble that reverberated through the trees. Eirik exchanged a worried glance with the guardian. "What's happening?" "The shadows are gathering their strength," it replied, urgency creeping into its tone. "They will fight back harder than before. We must hurry." The path twisted sharply, leading them to a clearing that felt charged with energy. Eirik's heart raced as he caught sight of several spirits caught in the throes of despair, their forms flickering like flames about to be extinguished. The shadows surrounding them were darker than any he had encountered, swirling with an intensity that chilled him to the bone. Eirik took a deep breath, steeling himself for the battle ahead. "I'm ready," he said, feeling the weight of the Moonshadow blossom in his hands. "We have to help them. Together." The Guardian nodded, its expression resolute. "We will face this darkness as one. But remember, Eirik, the strength of our bond will be our greatest weapon. You must call upon the spirits to remember who they are." As they stepped into the clearing, the shadows turned to confront them, writhing and hissing as if sensing their determination. Eirik could feel the oppressive weight of despair pressing down on him, but he refused to back down. "Spirits," he called out, his voice echoing through the clearing. "You are not forgotten. Remember your love, your joy. We are here to help you break free." The shadows roared in anger, surging forward to engulf him, but Eirik stood his ground, the light of the Moonshadow blossom illuminating the space around him. The Guardian positioned itself beside him, an unyielding force against the encroaching darkness. "Fight!" Eirik shouted. "Remember who you are." As the spirits began to awaken from their tormented slumber, he saw their faces begin to emerge from the darkness. Memories flickered in their eyes, igniting a spark of defiance against the shadows that sought to claim them. In that moment, the battle for the grove erupted. Eirik and the Guardian fought against the overwhelming tide of darkness, their voices rising in a rallying cry for the spirits to join them, to remember their past and reclaim their freedom. As Eirik and the Guardian stood firm against the encroaching shadows, a surge of energy coursed through him, emboldening his spirit. The darkness writhed and twisted around them, a living entity determined to snuff out the light. Eirik could feel the weight of the spirits pressing down, their anguish threatening to drown out the hope he had ignited. "Together," he shouted, his voice ringing out like a bell in the stillness. "You have the strength within you. Remember your laughter, your love, the moments that made you who you are. Break free." The spirits hesitated for a moment, the shadows recoiling as if caught off guard by the sheer force of his words. Eirik saw flickers of recognition in their eyes, small sparks igniting amidst the despair. They began to rise, their forms shifting, the darkness that had held them captive starting to loosen its grip. The shadows, sensing their loss of control, howled in fury. "You cannot save them. They belong to us," they screeched, their voices a cacophony of rage that echoed through the grove. "Not while I stand." Eirik shouted back, raising the Moonshadow blossom high. The flower pulsed with light, casting brilliant beams that pierced the shadows like sunrays breaking through the clouds. "You will not take them." With renewed resolve, Eirik turned to the spirits. "Now, remember your love. Think of your families. Focus on the moments that brought you joy." The spirits began to respond, their forms glowing as they reached out for one another. Eirik could see their connection strengthening, the ties of memory pulling them together like threads in a tapestry. A young mother, her features softened by love, stepped forward from the shadows. I remember my children," she cried, her voice filled with desperation and hope. "I sang them to sleep, I held them in my arms. I will not forget them." The shadows shrieked in protest, trying to snatch her back into their folds, but the light around her flared brighter. "I won't let you take me," she declared, her voice gaining strength. "I am not just a shadow. I am their mother." Eirik felt the energy of the blossom surge as the light enveloped her, dispersing the shadows that sought to claim her. With a triumphant cry, the mother soared upward, her spirit breaking free, a radiant form that joined the other spirits rising against the darkness. "Look, they're awakening," Eirik shouted, heart racing with excitement. Encouraged by the sight, more spirits began to fight back, reaching deep into their memories. An old man remembered the smell of freshly baked bread, the laughter of his grandchildren ringing in his ears. A young girl clung to the memory of her father's strong arms, lifting her high into the air as they played beneath the sun. With each memory recalled, more spirits broke free from their bonds. The grove erupted in a symphony of light and joy, their collective energy pushing back against the shadows. Eirik felt the atmosphere shift, the weight of despair lifting, and for a moment he thought they might truly overcome the darkness. But the shadows, now desperate, launched a furious counterattack, dark tendrils lashing out like whips. Eirik and the Guardian stood firm, weaving through the onslaught, their own light pushing back against the encroaching darkness. "Hold strong, Eirik," the Guardian urged, its voice a steady anchor amidst the chaos. "The shadows will try to separate us. We must not allow that." Eirik nodded, heart pounding as he concentrated on the energy of the spirits around him. "We're not alone," he called out, rallying the spirits. "Fight for each other. Together we are stronger." The spirits, united by the shared memories of love and loss, joined their voices in a powerful chorus. "We will not be forgotten. We remember. We are free." Their cries filled the grove, echoing off the ancient trees and into the heart of the shadows. Eirik could feel their collective strength, an unbreakable bond that surged through the air like a tidal wave. The shadows writhed in fury, their forms thinning under the onslaught of light and love. "Now, break free," Eirik shouted, the moon shadow blossom glowing brighter than ever before. "Let the light consume the darkness." In a brilliant explosion of color and warmth, the spirits unleashed their memories, flooding the grove with light. The shadows screeched in defeat, their tendrils fraying and evaporating like mist under the sun. Eirik felt a rush of triumph as he watched the darkness retreat, the grove transforming before his eyes. The once gloomy space was now alive with vibrant colors and the laughter of the freed spirits. They soared into the sky, their forms intertwining with the sunlight, creating a stunning display of light and joy that spread throughout the forest. Eirik dropped to his knees, breathless and overwhelmed by the beauty of it all. "We did it," he whispered, tears of relief streaming down his face. "We really did it." The Guardian knelt beside him, a proud smile illuminating its features. "You have accomplished something remarkable, Eirik. You've not only freed the spirits but also shown them the power of their own memories." As they caught their breath amidst the shimmering grove, Eirik felt a sense of peace wash over him. But the echoes of the battle still lingered in the air, a reminder of the darkness that could return. "But there are still more shadows out there, aren't there?" he asked, glancing around at the remnants of the battle. "Yes," the Guardian replied, standing tall. "There are more spirits in need of our help. The forest has many stories yet to be told, and many souls still searching for freedom. Are you ready to continue?" Eirik wiped the tears from his eyes, a renewed sense of purpose igniting within him. "Absolutely. I won't stop until we free every last one of them." As they set off deeper into the heart of the forest, the bond between them and the spirits they had rescued strengthened Eirik's resolve. He could still feel the lingering energy of their joy, a reminder of the love that would always guide them forward, even in the darkest of times. Together, they ventured forth into the unknown, prepared to face whatever challenges awaited them, armed with the knowledge that love and memory were powerful allies against the shadows that haunted the forest. As Eirik and the Guardian pressed deeper into the forest, the vibrant atmosphere of the grove began to fade. The trees grew taller and denser, their gnarled branches intertwining overhead like the fingers of a giant reaching for the sky. The light from the moonshadow blossom flickered against the encroaching darkness, casting long shadows that danced unsettlingly on the forest floor. "We are getting closer," the Guardian murmured, its voice echoing in the stillness. "The heart of the forest lies ahead, where the darkness is strongest. It is here that the most tormented spirits reside, and where the shadows gather their power." Eirik nodded, a mix of determination and apprehension swirling within him. The warmth from the spirits they had freed lingered in his heart, a beacon guiding him onward. But the thought of the challenges that lay ahead filled him with a sense of dread. "What if we're not strong enough?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if we can't save them?" "The strength you have shown is greater than you realize," the Guardian replied, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You have already awakened the spirits to their memories. That is a power the shadows cannot extinguish. As they ventured further, the sounds of the forest transformed. The joyful melodies of birds and rustling leaves were replaced by an unsettling silence, broken only by the faint whispers of the shadows lurking just beyond their sight. Eirik could feel the weight of despair pressing down on him, a palpable force that threatened to snuff out his resolve. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and a low growl echoed through the trees, reverberating in Eirik's chest. He exchanged a worried glance with the Guardian, his heart racing. What was that? The Guardian's expression darkened. The shadows are aware of our presence. We must remain vigilant. They will try to divide us, to sow doubt and fear. Trust in each other and in the light of the Moonshadow blossom. Just as the Guardian finished speaking, a massive figure emerged from the underbrush, cloaked in swirling shadows. It towered above them, its eyes glowing like embers in the dark, filled with malice and ancient sorrow. Eirik felt a chill run down his spine as he recognized the presence of a dark spirit, one that had been twisted by grief and despair. "Why do you trespass in my domain?" the dark spirit roared, its voice like thunder rolling through the trees. "You dare to challenge the shadows? You will suffer for your insolence." Eirik stepped forward, his grip tightening around the Moonshadow blossom. "We're here to free the lost spirits. We won't let you keep them in darkness any longer." The dark spirit laughed, a chilling sound that reverberated through the grove. "You think you can save them? They belong to me. Their pain feeds my power. Without their suffering, I am nothing." Eirik felt a surge of anger. "You're wrong. Their love and memories are stronger than your darkness. They can overcome you." With that declaration, he raised the Moonshadow blossom high, its petals glowing fiercely against the encroaching shadows. The light pulsed with energy, illuminating the dark spirit's features and revealing the countless tormented faces that writhed within its form. "Look!" Eirik shouted, his voice echoing with conviction. "They are still there, fighting to break free. We can help them together." The dark spirit shrieked in rage, the shadows around it coiling like serpents ready to strike. "You will regret this. I will unleash my fury upon you." The battle erupted with an intensity that shook the very foundations of the forest. The dark spirit lunged at Eirik, dark tendrils stretching out like claws, but he stood his ground, channeling the warmth of the Moonshadow blossom. The light expanded, pushing back against the shadows, forcing them to retreat. Together, Eirik cried out to the Guardian, "We need to draw on the spirits we've freed." The Guardian nodded, its own light flaring as it joined forces with Eirik. They called upon the spirits of the grove, their voices weaving a powerful incantation that echoed through the trees. "Spirits of love and memory, join us. Your strength is needed. Fight against the shadows." As they invoked the names of the spirits, Eirik felt a rush of energy. The air shimmered with light as the freed spirits began to manifest around them, their forms glowing brightly, united in purpose. "We remember," they shouted, their voices resonating with strength. "We are not lost." The dark spirit recoiled, its shadowy form flickering with uncertainty. "No, this cannot be. You cannot fight me," it roared, but the spirits surged forward, their collective memories illuminating the space around them. "Your darkness cannot hold us," the young mother cried, her spirit radiating with joy. "We are free. We will reclaim our memories." The other spirits echoed her words, forming a brilliant barrier of light that surrounded Eirik and the Guardian. The darkness writhed in agony, unable to withstand the sheer force of their combined love and memory. Eirik's heart soared as he watched the spirits reclaim their essence, their laughter intertwining with the light. "Keep pushing," he urged, determination filling his voice. "Together we can break the chains of despair." With a final surge of strength, the spirits launched themselves at the dark spirit, their light engulfing it in a brilliant explosion. Eirik felt the air crackle with energy as the darkness began to unravel, the twisted form of the dark spirit collapsing into itself, releasing a wail that echoed through the forest. "No, you cannot." The dark spirit's voice faded into nothingness, consumed by the radiance of the spirits who had once been lost. As the light spread throughout the grove, the shadows that had plagued the forest began to dissolve, revealing the beauty of the world once more. The trees shimmered in the sunlight, their leaves dancing in a gentle breeze, and the air filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers. Eirik fell to his knees, breathless and overwhelmed. The spirits surrounded him, their faces glowing with gratitude and joy. "You have freed us," they exclaimed, their voices a chorus of relief. The guardian stood beside him, a proud smile illuminating its features. "You have shown great courage, Eirik. You have not only freed the spirits but also restored balance to this forest." As the spirits lifted into the sky, Eirik felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over him. The warmth of their love enveloped him like a gentle embrace, a promise that he would never be alone. "I couldn't have done it without you," he whispered, looking at the guardian. "No, Eirik," it replied gently. "You found the strength within yourself. You listened to the call of the spirits and honored their memories. That is the true power of love." As they began their journey back through the grove, Eirik couldn't help but reflect on the experiences they had shared. The forest had revealed its secrets, and he had learned that love could transcend even the darkest of shadows. And as the last remnants of darkness faded away, he knew in his heart that they had forged a bond that would last for eternity, one rooted in the shared memories of love, hope, and the unbreakable spirit of those who would never be forgotten. With the last echoes of the battle fading into the breeze, Eirik walked through the now rejuvenated forest, the sunlight filtering through the vibrant leaves above him. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers and the soft rustle of creatures re-emerging from their hiding places. The spirits they had freed lingered nearby, their laughter like a distant melody that danced on the wind. Eirik felt a profound sense of accomplishment, but also a bittersweet pang in his heart. He had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, yet he knew there were many more forests in need of healing, many more spirits awaiting liberation. "What will happen now?" he asked the guardian, who walked beside him, its ethereal glow gently illuminating their path. "The forest will heal, and so will the spirits," the guardian replied, its voice calm and soothing. "They will continue to watch over this place, their memories forever intertwined with the roots and branches. As for you, Eirik, your journey does not end here. There are many others like you who carry the burden of loss and longing. You can help them just as you helped these spirits." Eirik nodded, absorbing the weight of the guardian's words. The memories of his sister, sick and fading, surged within him, reminding him of his purpose. "I must find a way to help her," he said resolutely. "I won't stop until she is free from her pain." "Your heart is strong, Eirik," the guardian said, a hint of pride evident in its tone. "The journey ahead will be filled with challenges, but you are not alone. The bonds you've forged with the spirits will guide you, and the love you carry will light your way." As they approached the edge of the forest, Eirik could see the familiar landscape of his village in the distance. He felt a surge of anticipation mixed with anxiety. Would they understand what he had accomplished? Would they believe in the spirits and the darkness he had faced? "Eirik," a familiar voice called out, breaking his thoughts. He turned to see his sister, Ilara, standing at the threshold of the forest, her face pale but filled with hope. "Is it really you, Ilara?" He rushed towards her, his heart racing. She looked frail but alive, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I found a way to save you. I promise you'll be well again." Her eyes shimmered with tears as she took a hesitant step forward. "I felt something, a warmth in the night. It was as if someone was calling to me." "It was the spirits," Eirik explained, his voice filled with urgency. "They are free now and their love can heal you. We have to return to the grove. We can help you." Elara looked uncertain, glancing back at the village. But what if the shadows return? Eirik took her hands in his, feeling the warmth of her spirit. We defeated the darkness together. And with the Moonshadow Blossom, we can heal what's been broken. Trust in our bond, Elara. She hesitated for a moment before nodding, her resolve returning. I trust you, Eirik. Lead the way. As they made their way back into the heart of the forest, Eirik felt the spirits surround them, their energy intertwining with his and Elara's, a tapestry of hope and love. The Moonshadow Blossom glowed brightly in Eirik's hand, a symbol of their victory and the promise of new beginnings. When they arrived at the grove, the spirits welcomed them with open arms, their luminous forms weaving a circle of light around Elara. Welcome, dear sister, a voice echoed, the mother spirit stepping forward. We have awaited your arrival. Love is the greatest medicine, and it is through love that you shall heal. Eirik watched as the spirits began to dance around Elara, their laughter ringing through the air like a sweet melody. The petals of the Moonshadow Blossom shimmered, releasing a soft glow that enveloped her in warmth. Eirik could see the darkness that had weighed on her spirit beginning to lift, replaced by the brilliant light of the spirit's love. Elara gasped as a surge of energy coursed through her, her face lighting up with newfound vitality. What is happening? She whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. The spirits are sharing their love with you, Eirik explained, his heart swelling with joy. Feel it, embrace it. The light grew brighter, illuminating the grove in a radiant glow that pushed back any remnants of darkness. Eirik watched in awe as Elara's form began to change, her color returning, her spirit rising as the shadows melted away. With a final burst of energy, the spirits coalesced into a brilliant sphere of light that enveloped Elara, lifting her gently off the ground. You are free, dear one. Embrace your life, they cried, their voices harmonizing in a beautiful symphony. As the light enveloped her completely, Eirik felt a rush of emotions. Love, gratitude, and an overwhelming sense of relief. The spirits had not only freed Elara from her suffering but had given her the chance to live again. When the light finally faded, Elara floated back down, standing before Eirik with a radiant smile. I feel whole again, she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with joy. Eirik, you did it. Tears of happiness streamed down Eirik's face as he embraced her tightly. We did it together, he whispered, overwhelmed by the love that surrounded them. The spirits gathered around them, their forms shimmering like stars in the twilight. Your bond is powerful, and your journey is just beginning, the guardian said, stepping forward. Remember, love is the light that can conquer even the darkest of shadows. As the sun began to set, casting golden rays across the grove, Eirik and Elara stood hand in hand, surrounded by the spirits that had changed their lives forever. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but they knew there were many more challenges ahead. Together, they would venture forth into the world, carrying the light of love and memory within their hearts, ready to face whatever awaited them. For in the depths of the forest of forgotten shadows, they had discovered a truth that would guide them on their journey. Even in the face of despair, love would always shine brighter, illuminating the path to hope and healing. The Song of the Black Sun. In a village nestled between two mighty mountains, the people lived simple lives, tending their fields and cherishing the warmth of the sun. Yet one fateful morning, a strange phenomenon painted the sky with shadows. What could this be? The villagers whispered, their eyes fixed on the horizon. A black sun had emerged, casting a dark hue over their once bright world. Among the villagers was a young woman named Elara. She was known for her kind heart and sharp mind, often sought for her wisdom. As she stood outside her small cottage, watching the ominous orb hang in the sky, a shiver ran down her spine. What did this mean for her home? Elara felt a deep connection to the land, and with this new threat looming, her sense of responsibility grew heavier. As the days passed, the black sun's presence began to change the villagers. They became more withdrawn, their laughter replaced by whispers of dread. Elara noticed that some people were developing strange abilities, powers that felt both alluring and terrifying. One neighbor, a man named Joran, could now manipulate shadows as if they were alive. Yet, with each new gift, a darkness seeped into their souls, twisting their intentions and clouding their thoughts. With growing concern, Elara sought out the village elder, a wise woman named Melis. The elder's eyes were clouded with worry as she spoke. "The Black Sun has come to grant power, but at what cost? It feeds on despair, and the longer it stays, the more it will consume us." Elara's heart raced. She had always believed that power could be used for good, but this felt different. Driven by her desire to save her home, Elara gathered a small group of brave souls who were willing to embark on a quest. "We must find the ancient temple of the gods," she declared, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her stomach. "There we may learn how to destroy the Black Sun and free ourselves from its grasp." The group consisted of Joran, whose powers both intrigued and frightened Elara, Lyra, a skilled archer with a sharp eye, and Derek, a strong young man who had always looked up to Elara. Together they would face the unknown. As they prepared for their journey, Elara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The air felt thick with an unseen presence, a reminder of the dark sun hovering above. With each passing moment, the urgency of their quest grew, and the shadows of doubt began to creep into Elara's heart. Would they succeed in their mission, or would the darkness consume them as it had so many others? The following dawn, Elara and her companions set out. They left behind their homes, their familiar comforts fading into the distance as they ventured into the unknown. The road to the ancient temple wound through dense forests where the sunlight struggled to penetrate, shrouded in the shadow of the Black Sun. Every rustle of leaves and distant call of wildlife felt eerie, as if nature itself was holding its breath. As they walked, Joran, who had begun to embrace his newfound abilities, playfully twisted shadows around his fingers. "Look what I can do," he laughed, forming shapes of animals that danced in the dim light. But Elara, though impressed, felt an unsettling sense of foreboding. Each time Joran played with the shadows, she noticed the darkness in his eyes deepen, as if the power was claiming him piece by piece. "Joran, be careful," she warned, her voice steady but laced with concern. "This power can be a curse. We must not forget why we are here." Joran's smile faltered for a moment, and Elara regretted her words. They needed his strength, but she could not ignore the change she saw within him. The forest soon transformed, revealing a clearing bathed in an ethereal glow. In the center stood a stone altar, ancient and worn by time. Intrigued, the group approached, drawn by a force they could not understand. As they gathered around the altar, Lyra's keen eyes spotted strange carvings along its edges, symbols of the gods who once watched over the land. "What do these mean?" Derek asked, tracing the intricate patterns with his fingers. "Could they hold the key to our quest?" Elara stepped closer, her heart racing as she deciphered the meanings embedded in the stone. These carvings speak of balance, of light and darkness. It is said that the Black Sun can only be banished by understanding its origin. The air grew heavier, thick with tension as they pondered the implications. Elara could feel the Black Sun's influence pressing down upon them, urging them to abandon their mission. Just then, a rustling sound interrupted their thoughts, causing them to turn. From the shadows emerged a figure cloaked in darkness, its form shifting and flowing like smoke. "Who dares disturb the sacred ground?" the figure hissed, its voice echoing with menace. Fear surged through Elara, but she stood her ground. "We seek the truth of the Black Sun. We wish to free our village from its grip." The figure chuckled, a sound like shattered glass. "You think you can challenge the darkness? You will only become another pawn in its game." Elara's heart pounded, but she refused to back down. "We may be pawns, but even pawns can change the course of a game." The figure stepped closer, revealing a face twisted with sorrow and rage. "I was once like you, filled with hope and dreams. But the Black Sun takes everything. You will learn this truth too late." With that, it melted back into the shadows, leaving the group shaken and uncertain. Elara exchanged worried glances with her friends. "We must continue," she urged, though doubt gnawed at her insides. "We cannot allow fear to deter us." The echoes of the figure's words lingered in the air, and the path ahead felt darker than before. With a collective breath, Elara and her companions resumed their journey. The shadows seemed to stretch longer as the sun dipped lower in the sky, creating an ominous backdrop for their quest. Every step they took felt heavier, as if the very ground was saturated with the despair that the black sun had wrought upon their land. As night fell, they made camp in a small clearing surrounded by towering trees. The moonlight struggled to pierce through the dense canopy, casting flickering shadows that danced like whispers around the campfire. They sat together, the warmth of the flames providing a temporary solace against the creeping chill of the darkness. "Do you think that figure was telling the truth?" Derek asked, poking at the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling into the air. "Can we really hope to defeat the Black Sun?" Elara could sense the fear in his voice, a reflection of her own inner turmoil. "We must believe we can. Hope is all we have left," she replied, her voice steady but her heart racing. Lyra, sitting cross-legged on the ground, looked up at Elara. "What if it's not just the Black Sun we need to fight? What if it's the darkness within ourselves?" Elara pondered this thought, feeling the weight of it settle heavily upon her shoulders. The darkness was not only external, it seeped into their hearts, testing their bonds and resolve. Joran remained silent, staring into the flickering flames. Elara glanced at him, concerned. She reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Joran, how do you feel?" He turned to her, and for a moment the playful spark in his eyes was dimmed. "I don't know. Sometimes I feel powerful, like I could do anything. Other times I feel like I'm losing myself." Elara squeezed his shoulder, a silent promise that she would not let him fall into the abyss. "We'll find a way to control it. Together." The warmth of the fire contrasted sharply with the chill creeping into the corners of their hearts. They sat in silence for a moment, each lost in their thoughts, grappling with their fears and uncertainties. Suddenly, the night was pierced by a haunting cry, a sound that seemed to echo from the depths of the forest. A chill ran down Elara's spine as she exchanged alarmed glances with her friends. "What was that?" Lyra whispered, her hand instinctively reaching for her bow. "I don't know," Elara admitted, her pulse quickening. "But we should stay alert." They huddled closer, the flickering flames casting long shadows that seemed to flicker with life. The eerie silence of the forest enveloped them, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the distant call that seemed to beckon them deeper into the woods. As the night wore on, Elara found it hard to sleep. She lay staring at the stars, wondering if the Black Sun had cast its dark influence upon them even in their dreams. Would they wake to find their village consumed by despair? Would they succumb to the darkness that threatened to swallow their hopes? In the depths of her thoughts, Elara felt a presence watching over them. It was a feeling both comforting and unsettling. Was it the gods? Or was it the Black Sun itself, waiting for the moment to strike? As dawn approached, Elara resolved to push these doubts aside. They had come too far to turn back now. As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, painting the clearing in hues of gold and green. Elara breathed in the crisp morning air, the chill of the night receding with the warmth of the new day. Yet, the unease from the previous night lingered like a shadow at the edge of her mind. They packed their belongings, each member of the group silent, reflecting on the events that had transpired. The haunting cry echoed in Elara's thoughts, a reminder of the danger that lay ahead. As they resumed their journey, the forest seemed different, more foreboding. The trees towered above them, their branches twisting like gnarled fingers, and the path ahead was obscured by creeping vines. "Do you think we're getting close?" Derek asked, breaking the silence. His voice was steady, but Elara could sense the underlying anxiety. The temple must be nearby, Ilara replied, though her own heart was heavy with uncertainty. We just have to keep moving. As they ventured deeper into the forest, they began to notice signs of corruption around them. Flowers that once bloomed vibrantly were wilting, their colors fading into dull browns. The air grew thick with an unnatural stillness, making it hard to breathe. The shadows seemed to stretch and shift as if alive, whispering secrets that were just out of reach. After several hours of walking, they stumbled upon a small pond, its surface still and reflective. As they paused to rest, Ilara knelt by the water's edge, peering into the depths. The reflection showed not just her face, but a distortion of her fears, the darkness of the black sun swirling around her image. She quickly turned away, pushing the vision from her mind. Joran approached, sensing her turmoil. "What's wrong, Ilara?" he asked softly. She sighed, unsure of how to voice her fears. "I can't shake this feeling that we're being watched, that the darkness is closing in on us." Joran nodded, a serious expression crossing his face. "I feel it too. It's like something is waiting for us to falter." Lyra stepped closer, her eyes scanning the treeline. "We must stay vigilant. If the darkness is watching us, we need to be ready for anything." They formed a tighter circle, discussing their strategy moving forward. Each of them felt the weight of the task ahead, the importance of their mission pressing down like a heavy cloak. As they prepared to leave the pond behind, a low growl reverberated through the air, freezing them in place. From the shadows emerged a creature, its body a mass of shifting darkness, eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Ilara's heart raced, and she instinctively reached for her bow, though it felt useless against such an entity. "What is that?" Derek whispered, fear creeping into his voice. The creature advanced, its form fluid and terrifying, as if it could dissolve into the very shadows around it. "Stay back," Ilara shouted, trying to maintain control. "We won't let you take us." But the creature did not seem interested in attacking. Instead, it halted a few paces away, regarding them with a strange intensity. The air felt charged, thick with anticipation. Ilara could feel the tension mounting, the creature's presence testing their resolve. "We have come to challenge the darkness," she declared, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "We seek the truth behind the black sun." The creature tilted its head, and for a moment, Ilara thought she could see a flicker of recognition in its glowing eyes. It was as if it understood their quest, their desperation, and the weight of their choices. The creature stood before them, a living shadow that exuded an aura of sorrow and despair. As Ilara held her breath, she noticed the way the darkness rippled around it, as if the very essence of the black sun infused its being. "What do you seek?" it rasped, its voice a haunting whisper that echoed in their minds. Ilara felt a mix of fear and determination coursing through her veins. "We seek to end the reign of the black sun. We wish to free our village from its grip," she proclaimed, her voice stronger than she felt. The creature's glowing eyes narrowed, studying her with an intensity that made her heart pound. "You wish to challenge that which has granted you power?" it asked, a hint of incredulity in its tone. "You do not understand the price you must pay." A shiver ran down Ilara's spine. "We know the risks, but we cannot live in fear. We choose to fight." The creature seemed to hesitate, its form flickering like a flame caught in a gust of wind. For a moment, Ilara thought it might retreat into the shadows, but instead, it began to shift, transforming into a shape that resembled a human, a figure cloaked in darkness, yet distinctly humanoid. "I was once like you, a seeker of light," the figure said, its voice softer now, almost pleading. "But the power of the black sun consumed me. I lost everything I held dear." Ilara felt her heart ache for the creature, recognizing the pain it carried. "What happened?" she asked gently. "It promised strength, control, and power over my fears. But it demands loyalty and offers no mercy. I became a wraith, trapped between worlds, a slave to its darkness," the figure revealed, its voice trembling with emotion. You must be prepared to face not just the external darkness but the shadows within yourselves. Elara exchanged glances with her companions. They were all grappling with their own fears and doubts. "What must we do?" she asked, her resolve hardening. The creature raised a hand, gesturing toward the path behind them, shrouded in shadow. "To confront the Black Sun, you must face the Temple of Shadows. There you will find the truth of its power and your own. But beware," the creature warned, its voice low and grave. "The journey will test your hearts and minds. You will encounter your greatest fears. Only those who truly understand their darkness can hope to wield the light." Without another word, the creature faded back into the shadows, leaving Elara and her companions in stunned silence. The weight of its warning hung heavily in the air, a reminder of the trials that awaited them. "Do you think we can do this?" Derek asked, his voice shaky. "Can we face whatever lies ahead?" Elara took a deep breath, letting the sunlight filter through the trees. "We have to try. We owe it to ourselves and our village. We will confront the darkness together, and we will find a way to bring back the light." With renewed determination, they moved forward, the path to the Temple of Shadows stretching before them. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Elara felt the shadows closing in, but she also felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. They were not alone in this fight. Together they would confront their fears and seek the truth behind the Black Sun, no matter the cost. The journey to the Temple of Shadows was fraught with tension. The air felt thick and charged, as if the forest itself was holding its breath, awaiting their arrival. Elara led the way, her heart racing with anticipation and fear. She could sense her companions' unease, their footsteps echoing the silent dread that had settled over them since their encounter with the creature. As they walked, the path twisted and turned, becoming less defined with each step. The trees grew taller and denser, their branches intertwining like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. Sunlight barely penetrated the thick canopy above, casting the forest in a perpetual twilight that felt both haunting and mesmerizing. Elara glanced back at her friends, noting the way the shadows danced around them, wrapping them in a dark embrace. "Are we sure we're headed in the right direction?" Lyra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She scanned the surroundings, her instincts on high alert. "It feels like we're being led into a trap." Elara nodded, understanding her friend's concerns. "We must trust the path. The creature pointed us this way, and I believe there's a reason for it." Despite her words, doubt gnawed at her. What if they were walking straight into danger? What if the darkness was already plotting against them? The deeper they ventured into the forest, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. Strange noises echoed around them, whispers carried by the wind, rustling leaves that sounded like distant voices. Each sound set Elara's nerves on edge, and she gripped her bow tightly, ready for whatever might come next. The sensation of being watched returned, prickling at the back of her neck. After what felt like hours, they arrived at the base of a towering cliff. Embedded within its rocky surface was an ancient doorway, adorned with intricate carvings that glowed faintly in the dim light. The symbols depicted scenes of battles between light and darkness, gods and mortals, hope and despair. It was beautiful yet unsettling, telling a story that felt both familiar and distant. "This must be it," Elara breathed, stepping closer to the entrance. Her heart pounded as she traced the carvings with her fingers, feeling a pulse of energy beneath her touch. "This is the Temple of Shadows." Joran stepped forward, a mixture of awe and apprehension in his eyes. "Are we ready for this? What if it reveals our darkest fears?" Elara turned to him, determination etched on her face. "We must face whatever lies within. It's the only way to understand the Black Sun and find a solution." As they exchanged glances, Elara could see the uncertainty lingering in their eyes, but also a flicker of resolve. They knew they were in this together, bound by their shared mission and the hope of saving their village. With a deep breath, she pushed the heavy door open, and it creaked ominously, revealing a dark passageway that seemed to stretch infinitely into the heart of the mountain. As they stepped inside, the temperature dropped, and shadows flickered at the edges of their vision. The air was thick with an ancient energy, heavy with the weight of forgotten memories. The walls were adorned with more carvings, but these were different, twisted and distorted, telling stories of despair and loss. The darkness enveloped them, and Alara could feel the oppressive weight pressing down on her chest. Each step echoed in the silence, amplifying her anxiety. "Stay close," she whispered, her voice barely carrying in the stillness. They moved deeper into the temple, their hearts pounding in unison. Suddenly, a chilling wind swept through the passage, and Alara felt a surge of power ripple around them. The shadows flickered and coiled, forming indistinct shapes that seemed to reach for her. "What is happening?" Derek exclaimed, panic rising in his voice. "We must keep moving," Alara urged, her heart racing. "We can't let the darkness take hold." But as they pressed forward, she could feel the pull of the shadows intensifying, an almost seductive lure that whispered doubts and fears into her mind. "Are we strong enough for this?" Joran's voice trembled, and Alara could sense the inner turmoil brewing within him. "What if we can't face what's inside?" Alara turned to him, her own fear rising, but she knew they had to stay united. "We have each other. We will face whatever comes together. We cannot let fear dictate our fate." With that, she took the lead, her resolve hardening as they ventured deeper into the heart of the temple. The air grew heavier as they continued deeper into the temple, the shadows stretching and shifting around them like living creatures. The flickering torchlight cast elongated silhouettes on the walls, creating the illusion of movement. Each step echoed ominously, amplifying their fear and anticipation. Alara led the way, her instincts on high alert. She could sense the darkness swirling around them, pressing in from all sides. The whispers from earlier returned, growing louder and more insistent, filling her mind with a cacophony of doubts. "You will never succeed," they seemed to chant. "You are weak. You cannot escape the black sun." She shook her head, trying to dispel the insidious thoughts. "Ignore it," she whispered to herself, drawing strength from her companions beside her. They needed to stay focused. This was their chance to confront the darkness and uncover the truth. As they navigated the winding corridors, the temperature dropped further, and a damp chill seeped into their bones. Alara could feel the weight of the temple's history, its walls lined with the remnants of lost souls who had entered seeking power or redemption but found only despair. "We can't let this place get to us," she said, glancing back at her friends. "We have to remember why we're here." Suddenly they entered a vast chamber, its ceiling lost to darkness. An altar sat in the center, carved from black stone, its surface glistening as if it were alive. The atmosphere in the room shifted, thickening with an ominous energy that made Alara's skin prickle. "What is this place?" Derek breathed, his eyes wide with fear. Alara stepped closer to the altar, feeling a magnetic pull drawing her in. Strange symbols surrounded it, pulsing with a faint light. "I think this is where the truth lies," she said, her heart racing with a mix of fear and curiosity. "We must uncover its secrets." As she approached the altar, a figure materialized before them, emerging from the shadows like a specter. It was an ethereal being, cloaked in darkness with eyes that shimmered like stars. The figure regarded them with an expression that was both wise and mournful. "You seek the truth of the black sun," it said, its voice resonating through the chamber. "But the truth comes at a price. Are you willing to pay?" Alara exchanged glances with her friends, uncertainty written across their faces. "What kind of price?" she asked, her voice steady despite the rising dread within her. The figure gestured toward the altar, the symbols glowing brighter in response. "To know the truth, you must confront your greatest fears. Only by facing the darkness within can you hope to overcome the darkness outside." Alara's heart sank. She had known this moment would come, but the reality of it was daunting. "What if we fail?" Joran whispered, his voice trembling. What if we can't bear it? We have to try, Elara insisted, a fierce determination igniting within her. We can't let fear control us. We came here for our village, for ourselves. We owe it to everyone to fight back. The figure nodded solemnly. Very well. Step forward one by one and confront your truth. Only by facing what you fear most can you hope to emerge unscathed. As the figure spoke, Elara felt the shadows around them pulse with anticipation. I'll go first, she declared, her heart pounding as she approached the altar. The moment she stepped forward, the room began to shift and swirl, the shadows closing in around her. Suddenly, she was enveloped in darkness, the chamber fading away. Elara found herself in a vast void, weightless and alone. The familiar sounds of her companions faded, replaced by a haunting silence. She looked around, panic rising in her chest. Where am I? Then, from the shadows, a vision began to materialize, a scene of her village, vibrant and alive. But as she watched, the sky darkened and the black sun rose, casting its malevolent glow over everything. She could see her friends and family, their faces twisted in fear and despair. No, this can't be happening. Elara screamed, trying to reach out to them, but an invisible force held her back. You failed them, a voice echoed around her, deep and mocking. You are the reason for their suffering. You could have stopped this. The words struck her like daggers, and she felt a crushing weight of guilt bearing down on her. Tears streamed down her face as she struggled against the darkness. No, I won't let you take me, she shouted, drawing on her anger and sorrow. I'm not afraid. With a surge of defiance, she reached deep within herself, grasping at the flickering light of hope that still remained. I will fight back. In that moment, the darkness around her began to shatter, the shadows peeling away to reveal the altar once more. Elara gasped for breath, her heart racing as she stumbled back, feeling the warmth of the chamber return. She looked up to see her friends standing nearby, their expressions a mix of concern and support. You did it, Joran said, a hint of awe in his voice. You faced it? Elara nodded, feeling the remnants of fear fade as she regained her composure. But there's more to come. We must keep going. With newfound resolve, Elara turned to her friends, who were still processing what they had witnessed. We have to keep going. It's Joran's turn now, she said, gesturing for him to step forward. He hesitated, a look of uncertainty clouding his features. Do I really have to? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What if I can't face whatever is waiting for me? Elara placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You're not alone. We're all in this together. Just remember, whatever happens, we'll be here for you. Joran took a deep breath, gathering his courage. Slowly, he stepped up to the altar, its symbols glowing softly in response to his presence. Elara watched, her heart heavy with concern for him. The moment Joran reached the altar, the shadows around them began to swirl once more, and he was enveloped in darkness. As the room shifted, Elara and the others watched in silence, anxious for their friend. The atmosphere grew tense, and the air was thick with anticipation. What do you think he'll see? Lyra whispered, her eyes wide with worry. I don't know, Elara admitted, her gaze fixed on the spot where Joran had vanished. But I hope he can face it. Suddenly, Joran's voice pierced the silence, filled with anguish. No, I can't do this. He appeared, his figure shrouded in shadows, and the sound of his panic echoed through the chamber. Elara felt a pang of fear for him, wishing she could reach out and pull him back from whatever he was experiencing. Then, like a curtain being pulled back, the darkness around Joran faded, revealing a scene that took Elara's breath away. He stood in the center of a bustling marketplace, vibrant and alive. But as he looked around, confusion washed over his face, replaced by a creeping dread. Why am I here? He murmured, his voice shaking. This isn't real. Elara could see the images around him flicker like a film reel, snapshots of happier times. Joran was a child again, laughing with friends, surrounded by family. But then the shadows crept in, darkening the scene. Faces began to twist in fear, their joy replaced with panic as the black sun loomed ominously in the sky. "Joran?" Elara shouted, desperate to reach him, but her voice seemed swallowed by the darkness. The shadows thickened, and Joran fell to his knees, clutching his head as if trying to block out the haunting memories. "You abandoned them," a voice hissed, echoing in the void. "You could have saved them, but you chose to run." "No," Joran cried, tears streaming down his face. "I was scared. I didn't know what to do." Elara felt her heart ache for him. She knew how much he cared for his family and friends. "Fight it, Joran," she urged, even as she felt helpless. "You're stronger than this." In that moment, Joran's eyes blazed with determination. "I won't let you control me," he shouted, standing tall despite the shadows that surrounded him. "I can't change the past, but I can protect them now." With a roar, he thrust his hands forward, channeling the power within him. The darkness around him erupted in a burst of light, pushing back the shadows and revealing the altar once more. Joran staggered back, breathless but triumphant. "I did it," he gasped, relief flooding his features as he rejoined Elara and the others. "I faced it." "Of course you did," Elara said, pride swelling in her chest. "You're not alone in this." She turned to Lyra. "It's your turn now." Lyra's expression shifted from concern to determination. "I can do this," she said, her voice steady. She stepped forward, standing before the altar, and as she did, the shadows closed around her. Elara and Joran exchanged worried glances, holding their breath as they waited for their friend to face her fears. The darkness enveloped Lyra, and the atmosphere shifted once more, leaving them in anxious silence. "Stay strong, Lyra," Joran whispered, hoping his words would somehow reach her. They watched as the shadows swirled and the scene unfolded. Lyra found herself standing on a cliff, overlooking a vast and tumultuous ocean. The wind whipped around her, tugging at her hair and clothes, and the sound of crashing waves filled her ears. As she peered into the distance, she could see a storm brewing on the horizon, dark clouds gathering ominously. "What is this?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling as she took a step closer to the edge. "This isn't real." But the storm grew closer, and she could feel the power of the waves crashing against the rocks below. The scene morphed, and suddenly she was no longer alone. Figures appeared. On the cliffside, their faces twisted in fear. They were the people she loved, the villagers, her family, all staring at her with eyes full of expectation and despair. "Lyra," a familiar voice called, and she turned to see her mother standing at the edge, arms outstretched. "Help us." Panic surged within her. "I can't," she screamed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm not strong enough." The wind howled and the shadows closed in, wrapping around her like a vice. "You have the power to save them," the voice taunted. "But you choose to stand back, paralyzed by fear. Will you abandon them too?" "No," Lyra shouted defiantly, shaking her head. "I won't let fear control me." As she fought against the darkness, the tempest swirled around her, threatening to pull her into its depths. But she felt a flicker of strength ignite within her. "I can do this," she declared, stepping forward with resolve. "I will protect them." With a surge of energy, Lyra reached out her hand, summoning the light within her. The shadows recoiled, revealing the altar once more as the storm dissipated. Lyra gasped, the light illuminating her face, and she staggered back, breathless but alive. "I faced it," she murmured in disbelief, her eyes wide with wonder. "I really did it." Elara rushed to her side, enveloping her in a warm embrace. "You're amazing, Lyra. You're stronger than you know." With their fears confronted, Elara felt a sense of unity among them. Together they had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but they still had a journey ahead. They could not rest yet, the true test still lay before them. "Now we must find the heart of the Black Sun," Elara said, determination coursing through her. We've come this far and we can't turn back now. As the three friends stood together, their hearts racing with the adrenaline of their recent victories, Elara took a moment to reflect on the strength they had discovered within themselves. Each challenge faced had not only tested them but also forged an unbreakable bond among them. Let's find the heart of the Black Sun, Elara urged, her voice firm with purpose. The altar must have led us here for a reason. There's more to uncover. They turned away from the altar, leaving the chamber behind and stepping into another dark passageway. The shadows seemed less oppressive now, but an undercurrent of tension still lingered in the air. Elara felt an electric energy surrounding them, an anticipation of what lay ahead. As they walked, the walls of the temple began to change, the once smooth stone now appearing rough and jagged, adorned with ancient writings that pulsed with a dim light. What do you think those mean? Joran asked, pointing to the symbols. I don't know, but they feel significant, Elara replied, tracing her fingers along the carvings. Maybe they're warnings or clues about the Black Sun's origins? Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the temple, causing the ground to tremble beneath their feet. The noise intensified, vibrating through the air like the growl of a great beast awakening. What was that? Lyra exclaimed, her eyes wide with fear. Whatever it is, we need to keep moving, Elara urged, her instincts kicking in. Stay close. They quickened their pace, navigating the winding corridors that seemed to stretch on endlessly. The atmosphere thickened, shadows looming larger and more menacing as they progressed. Elara could feel the presence of something ancient and powerful, lurking just out of sight, watching them. Finally, they emerged into another vast chamber, but this one felt different. The air was charged with an unsettling energy and the temperature dropped sharply. In the center of the room stood a colossal stone pedestal, its surface covered in intricate carvings that mirrored those they had seen before but were far more elaborate. What is this place? Joran asked, his voice echoing eerily in the silence. Elara stepped forward, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and dread. I think this is it, the heart of the Black Sun. As she approached the pedestal, the carvings began to shimmer with a ghostly light, illuminating the chamber in a soft glow. Elara could feel a pulse emanating from the stone, a rhythm that resonated with her own heartbeat. It's alive, she whispered, awestruck. The heart of the Black Sun, Lyra murmured, glancing at the glowing pedestal. What do we do now? Elara hesitated, contemplating the gravity of the moment. We must awaken it, she said, conviction settling within her. We need to understand its true nature and how to stop its power from consuming our world. As she placed her hands on the pedestal, a surge of energy coursed through her, flooding her senses with visions, flashes of a time long before when the Black Sun first rose in the sky. The scenes unfolded like a tapestry woven with threads of light and shadow, depicting ancient beings, powerful rituals, and the catastrophic consequences of the sun's emergence. Elara's mind raced as she struggled to process the images. It's connected to the darkness, she gasped, pulling back. It feeds on fear, despair, and chaos. The more we succumb to it, the stronger it becomes. Joran stepped closer, his brow furrowed in thought. So it's not just a celestial body, it's a force of corruption. We have to find a way to counteract it. Lyra nodded, her expression determined. But how do we do that? We can't fight something so powerful. Elara took a deep breath, piecing together the information they had gathered. We've faced our fears and emerged stronger. What if that's the key? We must confront the Black Sun itself, but this time with the strength of our resolve and the light of our hope. At that moment, the pedestal pulsed again, and the chamber trembled as if responding to her words. The carvings glowed brighter, and a voice resonated through the air, deep and echoing. To defeat the Black Sun, you must unite your hearts and summon the light within. Only then can you hope to restore balance. Elara exchanged glances with her friends, a shared understanding passing between them. They had faced their fears, and now they had to channel that strength into something greater. "We can do this," Joran said, a spark of hope igniting in his eyes. "Together?" Ilara nodded, feeling the warmth of their bond enveloping her. "Let's do it. Let's summon the light." They joined hands around the pedestal, their hearts beating in sync as they focused on the warmth and strength they had discovered within themselves. With every breath, they visualized the light growing brighter, pushing back against the shadows that threatened to consume them. As they concentrated, the pedestal erupted with a blinding light, illuminating the chamber and casting away the darkness. The energy surged around them, a powerful force that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Ilara felt the presence of the black sun pushing back, but they stood firm, united in their resolve. "Now!" she shouted, pouring all of her strength into the light. "Together!" With that, the light erupted outward, engulfing the chamber in brilliance. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in fury as the darkness was pushed back, revealing the true nature of the heart, the embodiment of hope, resilience, and love. As the light burst forth, the chamber was transformed. The oppressive darkness that had once weighed heavily on their shoulders melted away, replaced by a warm glow that filled the room with a sense of peace. Ilara could feel the energy pulsing through her veins, a vibrant current that connected her to Joran and Lyra. "It's working," Lyra exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with hope as the light swirled around them. "We can do this." Ilara focused her thoughts, channeling everything she felt. The courage from facing her fears, the warmth of friendship, and the fierce desire to protect their world. "We are not afraid," she shouted, her voice ringing out with confidence. "We will not be consumed by darkness." With each word, the light intensified, reaching into the far corners of the chamber. The pedestal glowed brighter than ever, its carvings now radiating an ethereal brilliance. Shadows writhed and hissed in the corners, but the light pushed back relentlessly, illuminating the space with clarity. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, and a crack echoed through the chamber as the very stone beneath them began to splinter. "Hold on," Joran shouted, gripping Ilara and Lyra's hands tightly. "We have to keep our focus." The voice from the pedestal boomed again, resonating through the chaos. "Only by confronting the source can you free yourselves from the black sun's grip. You must confront your deepest fears once more, not just for yourselves, but for all who have been lost." Ilara felt a shiver run down her spine as the implications sank in. "We have to go deeper," she realized. "We have to face whatever the black sun represents, its origins, its power, and the pain it inflicts." "We're ready," Lyra said, her voice steady despite the tremors around them. "Let's do this." As they steadied themselves, the light from the pedestal surged, enveloping them completely. In an instant, they were transported to a different realm, a shadowy landscape filled with twisted trees and dark skies, the black sun hanging ominously overhead. Ilara gasped as she looked around. "Where are we?" "This is it," Joran said, his voice low as he took in the scene. "This is the heart of the black sun." The shadows whispered around them, echoing with the voices of those who had been consumed by its power. Images of despair flickered like flames in the darkness, showing the suffering of countless souls who had succumbed to fear. Ilara's heart ached as she recognized the faces, friends, family, and even strangers who had been lost in their battles against the black sun. "We have to confront this," Ilara declared, stepping forward into the shadowy realm. "We can't let fear control us any longer." The darkness thickened, forming into tangible shapes that loomed around them, monstrous figures embodying their worst fears. Ilara could feel her heart race as she faced her own shadow, a twisted version of herself, filled with doubt and despair. "You are weak," it hissed, its voice a chilling echo of her insecurities. "You will never defeat the darkness." "No," Ilara shouted, shaking her head. "I'm not weak. I am strong because I have faced my fears and learned from them." With each declaration of strength, the light within her flared brighter. "I have my friends by my side, and together we will rise above." The shadow shrieked, recoiling from her light as Joran stepped forward. His own shadow took form, a dark reflection of his past mistakes. You abandoned them, it snarled, sharp claws reaching out. You can't escape your failures. I won't deny my past, Joran replied, his voice resolute. But I won't let it define me. I can be better. As he spoke, the light surged again, pushing back against the shadow. Lyra stepped forward, facing her own fear, a dark figure representing her uncertainty and doubt. You're not strong enough, it sneered, circling her like a predator. I am strong enough, Lyra countered fiercely. I've faced challenges before and I will face them again. I refuse to let fear dictate my life. With each stand they took, the shadows shrank away, their forms dissolving into the brilliant light surrounding the trio. Elara could feel the strength of their bond amplifying their light, and with it, the power to confront the black sun. Together, she called, urging them onward. Let's unite our light. As they held hands tightly, they combined their energies, creating a radiant beam that pierced through the darkness. The shadows screeched and twisted, struggling against the power they had summoned. You cannot defeat me, the voice of the black sun boomed, a tempest of fury swirling above them. But we can, Elara shouted defiantly. Together we are stronger than any darkness. With a final surge of determination, they released their light into the sky, a brilliant explosion that shattered the gloom. The darkness erupted in a cacophony of howls, the shadows disintegrating into the ether as the black sun above began to wane, its power weakening. The realm around them trembled, and they felt a sense of freedom washing over them. We did it, Joran exclaimed, joy shining in his eyes. We really did it. As the last remnants of the shadows faded, a soft, warm light enveloped them, filling the air with a sense of peace. The black sun, once a source of dread, began to transform, shifting into a radiant sphere that cast a gentle glow across the landscape. Elara, Joran, and Lyra exchanged relieved glances, their hearts swelling with hope. We've turned it into something beautiful, Lyra said, her voice barely a whisper. We've brought back the light. With the darkness dispelled, the realm transformed before their eyes, blooming into a vibrant landscape filled with colors and life. The shadows had been vanquished, replaced by a new dawn that promised healing and renewal. Now we can return, Elara said, her voice filled with emotion. We can share what we've learned with others, to help them face their fears and find their own light. As they stood together, a portal of light opened before them, beckoning them back to their world. With hearts full of hope, they stepped forward, ready to embrace their futures. Elara, Joran, and Lyra stepped through the shimmering portal, feeling a rush of warmth wash over them as they re-entered their world. They emerged in the heart of the forest where their journey had begun, but everything felt different. The once oppressive atmosphere was now filled with a gentle glow, the sunlight streaming through the leaves as if the very earth was rejoicing. What just happened? Joran breathed, taking in the transformed landscape. The colors seemed more vivid, the air alive with the sounds of birds singing and leaves rustling in the breeze. Elara closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the tranquility around her. We faced the black sun and its darkness, she said softly. But we didn't just defeat it, we transformed it. We brought light back to our world. Lyra looked around, her eyes wide with wonder. It's beautiful, she said, a smile spreading across her face. We really did it. But as they stood together, basking in the aftermath of their victory, a shadow of doubt flickered in Elara's heart. But what about those who weren't able to face their fears? She wondered aloud. What about the ones who are still lost? Joran furrowed his brow, his expression turning serious. We need to help them, he said, determination flooding his voice. We can't just leave them in darkness. Lyra nodded, her spirit ignited by their shared purpose. We have to show them that they can find their own light just like we did. We can teach them to confront their fears. As they discussed their plans, The warmth of their success began to settle into a sense of responsibility. Elara felt the weight of what lay ahead. Their journey had transformed them, but it also meant they had a duty to guide others on their own paths to healing. "Let's gather everyone," Elara proposed, her heart racing at the thought of reuniting with their community. "We can share our story, show them what we've learned." With a newfound sense of purpose, they made their way back to the village, the sun shining brightly overhead. As they walked, the forest seemed to celebrate their return. Flowers bloomed more vibrantly, and the gentle rustling of leaves sounded like whispers of encouragement. When they reached the village, the streets were abuzz with activity. The townsfolk were gathered in the square, their faces marked with worry and uncertainty. Elara felt a surge of emotions as she observed the unease in their eyes. They had been affected by the shadow of the black sun, and the fear still lingered in the air. "Everyone," Elara called, her voice strong and clear as she stepped into the center of the square. The crowd turned to face her, and she felt their collective gaze weighing on her. "We have something important to share with you." The crowd hushed, curiosity piqued. Joran and Lyra joined her, standing resolutely by her side. "We have faced the darkness of the black sun," Elara continued, her heart pounding with determination. "We've journeyed to the Temple of Shadows, and we have learned that fear is a powerful force, but it can be overcome." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, and Elara saw a mix of skepticism and hope reflected in their faces. "We transformed the darkness into light," she declared. "And we believe that you can too." A voice rang out from the back of the crowd, an elder with silver hair and a furrowed brow. "How can we trust that this light will last? The shadows have haunted us for so long." Elara took a deep breath, her heart aching for those who had suffered. "I understand your fear," she said, her voice steady, "but we've seen what lies on the other side. We've learned to confront our fears and turn them into something beautiful. Together we can face this darkness." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes shining with conviction. "You don't have to face it alone. We can support each other, share our stories, and help one another find our inner strength." As Elara looked out at the crowd, she noticed the flicker of hope igniting in their eyes. "We can show you the way," she urged. "We can gather together, share our fears, and transform them into light. It won't be easy, but we will do it together." The elder stepped forward, his expression softening. "You speak with great courage, young ones. Perhaps it is time we listen." A wave of relief washed over Elara as the crowd began to nod in agreement. They had taken the first step toward healing, and together they could forge a path forward. "Let's gather in the square every week," Joran suggested, his enthusiasm infectious. "We can share our experiences, our struggles, and our triumphs. Together we will confront our fears and help one another find light." As the villagers began to murmur in agreement, Elara felt a surge of gratitude for her friends. They had turned their journey into a mission to uplift their community, and in doing so they had found a deeper purpose. "We will support one another," Elara promised, her voice filled with emotion. "We will create a new beginning, free from the shadows that have haunted us." The crowd erupted into applause, a sound filled with hope and determination. Elara's heart swelled as she realized that their journey had only just begun. They had the power to change lives and inspire others to confront their own darkness. The villagers gathered around Elara, Joran, and Lyra, their faces a tapestry of emotions, curiosity, fear, and the flickering light of hope. As the trio shared their experiences in vivid detail, the atmosphere shifted. The square, once heavy with uncertainty, now buzzed with an electrifying energy as people leaned closer, eager to hear more. "We traveled to the Temple of Shadows," Elara recounted, her voice steady as she painted the picture of their journey. "We faced our fears, confronted our darkest moments, and transformed them into light. It wasn't easy, but we discovered that darkness can be overcome." A young woman with tear-filled eyes stepped forward. "I lost my brother to the shadows," she confessed, her voice trembling. "I don't know how to find the light again." Elara's heart ached for her. I understand your pain, she said softly. I felt lost too. But it's in facing that pain that we can find strength. You don't have to carry it alone. Joran stepped forward, his gaze fierce. Together we can share our stories and support one another. Let's create a safe space where we can express our fears and learn from one another. The crowd was silent for a moment, then an older man nodded, his voice steady. If you believe in this, we will stand with you. His words sparked murmurs of agreement, igniting a fire of determination in the hearts of those present. As they began to discuss their plan, Ilara could feel the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. They were venturing into uncharted territory, guiding others to confront the darkness that had long plagued them. We should gather every week, she suggested. We can meet here in the square, share our fears, and remind each other that we are not alone. Lyra's face lit up with excitement. We can also create activities, like storytelling sessions, art, and music, to help express our emotions. It's a way to connect and heal together. The idea resonated with the villagers, who began to chatter enthusiastically. Ilara felt a surge of hope blossom within her. This was more than just a meeting. It was the beginning of a movement toward healing. In the days that followed, the village transformed into a hub of activity. Each week, they gathered in the square, sharing stories of loss and triumph. Ilara, Joran, and Lyra led discussions, encouraging everyone to speak freely about their experiences with the Black Sun and the shadows it cast over their lives. One evening, as twilight settled over the village, the trio organized a storytelling night. They lit lanterns that flickered like stars, casting a warm glow over the gathering. Villagers settled on blankets, their faces illuminated by the soft light, as Ilara began to share her own story. I remember the first time I felt the shadows closing in, she started, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. It was like a fog creeping into my heart, whispering doubts and fears. But I also remember the moment I chose to fight back. As she spoke, Ilara saw tears glistening in the eyes of those around her. I learned that the shadows do not define us. It's how we respond to them that matters. We can choose to seek the light within ourselves. Joran followed, sharing his journey of self-acceptance and the importance of friendship in overcoming darkness. Lyra's story resonated with the crowd, illustrating her battles with fear and uncertainty, and how she had discovered strength through vulnerability. With each story shared, the bonds between villagers deepened. They laughed, cried, and supported one another, creating a tapestry of resilience woven from their collective experiences. The atmosphere shifted. The weight of the shadows that once loomed over them began to lighten. As the weeks passed, Ilara noticed the transformation in her community. People who had once hidden away were now stepping forward, sharing their burdens and finding solace in the understanding of others. There was a palpable sense of hope in the air, a lightness that hadn't been felt in years. Yet, beneath the surface of their newfound camaraderie, Ilara sensed that the shadows still lurked, waiting for an opportunity to creep back in. The Black Sun may have been transformed, but its influence had left scars that would take time to heal. One evening, after a particularly moving gathering, Ilara found herself sitting on a log by the edge of the forest, lost in thought. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting silver beams on the ground. She could hear laughter in the distance, the sound of her friends celebrating their progress. What if it's not enough? She whispered to herself, the fear creeping back into her heart. What if the shadows return, stronger than before? Just then Lyra approached, sensing her friend's turmoil. "Hey," she said softly, taking a seat beside Ilara. "What's on your mind?" "I'm worried," Ilara admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "We've made so much progress, but what if the darkness finds a way back? What if we can't keep the light shining?" Lyra sighed, wrapping her arm around Ilara's shoulders. "It's okay to be afraid," she reassured. "But we can't let that fear stop us. Remember what we learned? It's okay to acknowledge the darkness, but we can't let it control us." Ilara nodded, though her heart felt heavy. I just wish I could be certain. Lyra smiled gently. We can't predict the future, but we can choose to face whatever comes together. That's what we've built here, a community that supports one another. As long as we have that, we will find a way through. As they sat together, the distant laughter echoing in the night, Ilara felt a flicker of hope reignite within her. She realized that it was okay to feel uncertain. It was part of the journey. With her friends by her side, she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the days turned into weeks, the community continued to flourish under the light of their shared stories and collective strength. Every gathering in the square became a celebration of resilience, where laughter mingled with tears and hope bloomed amidst the remnants of sorrow. Ilara, Joran, and Lyra felt a growing sense of purpose, leading their village through the healing process. Yet, even as the villagers embraced their newfound courage, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were still watching, lurking just beyond the edges of their happiness. One night, as the stars twinkled like distant lanterns in the vast sky, Ilara gathered her friends beneath the ancient oak tree. The moon hung low, casting a silvery glow that felt both comforting and foreboding. I have to ask, Ilara began, her voice trembling slightly. Do you think the darkness will return? I can't help but feel it still out there waiting for us to falter. Joran frowned, his brow furrowing. I felt it too, he admitted. There's a part of me that worries we're still vulnerable, that the black sun might find a way back. Lyra nodded, her expression serious. It's important to acknowledge that fear. But we also have to trust in what we've built together. We're stronger now, and we've learned how to confront the darkness. Ilara sighed, her heart heavy with doubt. But what if it's not enough? What if the shadows return and we're not prepared? Then we'll face it together, Joran replied firmly, his eyes locking onto Ilara's. We've faced unimaginable odds before. We can do it again. We have each other. As they sat beneath the oak tree, the comforting sounds of the village faded away, leaving a deep stillness in the air. The weight of their words hung heavily, and Ilara felt a sense of resolve begin to blossom within her. The following day, the village gathered once more in the square, and Ilara took the opportunity to address her fellow villagers. We've come so far together, she began, her voice steady, but I want to remind everyone that healing is a journey, not a destination. We must remain vigilant, for the shadows we face may not be gone forever. The crowd nodded, their expressions serious. It's okay to be afraid, Ilara continued, but we can't let that fear consume us. Instead, let's prepare ourselves, strengthen our bonds, and support one another as we face whatever comes next. An elderly woman stepped forward, her eyes filled with wisdom. You speak truth, child. We must not forget the lessons we've learned. Fear can only hold power if we let it. A ripple of agreement swept through the crowd, and Ilara felt a sense of unity blossoming among them. They were ready to confront whatever darkness lay ahead, armed with their stories and the strength of their connections. As the gathering came to a close, Ilara felt a spark of hope igniting within her. Perhaps, with the support of their community, they could withstand the shadows. Days turned into nights, and as the village thrived, Ilara often found herself at the edge of the forest, staring into the depths of the trees. She felt a strange connection to the woods, as if it held secrets that could help them navigate the darkness. One evening, as she walked along the familiar path, a flicker of movement caught her eye. She turned to see a figure emerging from the trees, a man with wild hair and piercing blue eyes. He stepped into the light, his expression a mix of fear and urgency. Please, you have to help me, he gasped, breathless and panicked. The shadows, they're coming back. I've seen them. Ilara's heart raced. What do you mean? She demanded, stepping closer. What have you seen? The man shook his head, desperation written all over his face. I was out gathering wood when I saw them, dark figures moving through the trees. They're gathering strength and they're coming for the village. Panic surged within Ilara. We need to warn the others, she urged, turning to head back toward the village. But the man grabbed her arm, his grip tight. "No. You must listen," he implored, his voice intense. "We don't have time. We need to prepare. They will feed on your fears and doubts." Elara's mind raced. What can we do? How can we stop them? "The Temple of Shadows," the man replied urgently. "You must go back, find the source of their power. It's the only way to stop them for good." As the man spoke, Elara felt a sense of urgency wash over her. They had faced the darkness once before, but this felt different, more sinister. "We need to gather Joran and Lyra," she said decisively. "We can't do this alone." The man nodded, his eyes wide with urgency. "We have to move quickly. They'll be here soon." As Elara sprinted back to the village, her heart pounded in her chest. She knew they had to act fast. The shadows were returning, and this time they wouldn't be caught off guard. She raced through the streets, calling out for Joran and Lyra, her voice echoing in the stillness of the night. When they met, the expressions on her friends' faces mirrored her own fear and determination. "We have to go back to the temple," Elara explained breathlessly. "The shadows are coming for us again." Joran's eyes narrowed, and Lyra gripped Elara's hand tightly. "We'll face them together," Joran said firmly. The trio quickly gathered supplies for their journey, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and determination. As they stepped into the forest, the air felt charged with tension, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Together, they ventured deeper into the woods, the familiar path now cloaked in a sense of foreboding. The moonlight danced through the leaves, casting eerie shadows that flickered like whispers of fear. Elara felt the weight of their mission pressing down on her, but she also felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. They had faced the darkness before, and they would do so again. This time, however, they were armed not just with courage but with the knowledge that they were not alone. As they moved through the forest, Elara led the way with Joran and Lyra close behind. The trees loomed tall and dark around them, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and twist with each step they took. Elara's heart raced as she recalled the last time they had ventured to the Temple of Shadows. They had faced their fears then, but now a deeper sense of urgency filled the air. "What if we aren't strong enough this time?" Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. Elara turned to her, determination hardening her gaze. "We are stronger together, Lyra. We've grown so much since our last journey. We've learned to face the darkness. Let's just remember what we've faced before," Joran added, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We can't let fear control us. We have to stay focused." As they pushed deeper into the woods, the sounds of the forest began to fade. The usual chirping of crickets and rustling of small creatures seemed to have vanished, leaving an eerie silence that sent shivers down Elara's spine. It felt as if the forest itself was holding its breath, anticipating the shadows' return. Finally, they reached the clearing where the Temple of Shadows stood, its ancient stones towering over them like sentinels. The temple, once a place of solace and discovery, now felt ominous and foreboding. The air was thick with tension, and Elara could feel a chill creeping up her spine. "Are we ready?" she asked, glancing at her friends. They nodded, their expressions a mixture of resolve and apprehension. Together, they stepped toward the entrance of the temple, where the large stone doors loomed ominously before them. As Elara pushed the doors open, a wave of darkness rushed out, swirling around them like a living entity. The shadows danced menacingly, whispering secrets that sent a chill through her heart. "Stay close," she urged her friends, gripping their hands tightly as they crossed the threshold. Inside, the temple was dimly lit, shadows clinging to the walls like dark memories. The air felt heavy, and Elara could sense the remnants of the darkness that had once consumed her. "We must find the source," she said, her voice echoing in the silence. "It's the only way to stop it." They ventured deeper into the temple, guided only by the faint glow of light emanating from the center chamber. As they approached, the whispers grew louder, echoing off the stone walls. Elara's heart raced as fear crept in, but she pushed it aside, reminding herself of the strength they had found in each other. In the center of the chamber stood a large altar, dark tendrils snaking around it like hungry vines. Atop the altar was a shimmering crystal, pulsating with a deep, unsettling energy. Elara could feel its power calling to her, a siren song that beckoned her closer. "That must be it," she breathed, staring at the crystal in awe. Joran stepped forward cautiously, his eyes locked onto the crystal. "We need to destroy it," he said firmly. "That's the source of the shadow's power." Lyra's eyes darted nervously between the crystal and her friends. "But how? We don't know what might happen." Elara took a deep breath, her mind racing. "We faced our fears once before and we can do it again. If we stand together and channel our light, we can overpower the darkness." As they gathered around the altar, the shadows began to swirl violently, trying to pull them away from the crystal. Elara could feel their strength, but she also felt the light within her beginning to shine. "Now!" she shouted, and they all raised their hands toward the crystal. With their combined strength, they focused their light, pushing against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. The shadows writhed and hissed, their whispers growing more frantic as the light intensified. Elara's heart raced as she felt the energy building around them, a powerful surge of hope and courage. "Don't give up," she cried, her voice rising above the cacophony. "We are stronger than the shadows. We are not afraid." As their light collided with the darkness, a brilliant flash erupted, illuminating the chamber and sending the shadows reeling back. The crystal pulsed violently, and with one final surge of energy, Elara felt the darkness shatter beneath their light. The echoes of their victory reverberated through the temple, and Elara stood panting, the remnants of the shadows dissipating into the air like smoke. They had done it. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. But as the dust settled, a lingering fear still gnawed at her heart. "Is it truly over?" she wondered aloud, glancing at her friends. Joran nodded, though his expression remained serious. "For now, but we must remain vigilant. The darkness may return in other forms." Lyra stepped closer, placing a comforting hand on Elara's shoulder. "We'll face it together just like we always have." As they left the temple, Elara felt a mix of triumph and apprehension. They had defeated the shadows, but the battle for their hearts and minds would continue. The Black Sun may have lost this round, but she knew it would not give up easily. As they emerged from the temple, the forest around them felt lighter, the air clearer. They had reclaimed a piece of their village from the darkness, but Elara understood that the fight against fear and uncertainty would be an ongoing journey. Hand in hand, they walked back toward the village, ready to share their story and inspire others to confront their fears. Together, they could light the way for those still lost in the shadows. As they approached the village, the sun began to rise, casting a warm glow across the landscape. The familiar sights of home filled Elara with a profound sense of relief and gratitude. The villagers were beginning their day, unaware of the battle that had just taken place. "Should we tell them?" Lyra asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Elara hesitated, considering the weight of their journey. "We need to share our story," she decided. "But we must also be mindful of how it could affect them. We've shown them how to stand strong, but I don't want to invoke fear." Joran nodded in agreement. "Let's gather everyone in the square and speak openly. They deserve to know what we faced, but we should emphasize the strength we found together." As they entered the village square, Elara's heart swelled with pride at the sight of her fellow villagers going about their daily routines. She saw familiar faces, their expressions brightening as they recognized her and her friends. Whispers began to spread, curiosity lighting their eyes. "Everyone," Elara called, raising her voice to capture their attention. The square gradually fell silent, and all eyes turned toward her. "We have returned, and we have a story to tell." The villagers gathered around, eager to hear what had transpired. Elara felt the weight of their anticipation, and she took a deep breath to steady herself. We faced the darkness once again, she began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. We returned to the Temple of Shadows, where the source of the Black Sun's power lay. We fought against the darkness, but we did not face it alone. She paused, looking around at the faces of her friends, then back to the villagers. With the strength of our bonds, we shattered the shadow's hold. We emerged victorious, but we understand that the battle against fear is never truly over. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Elara continued, sharing the details of their journey and the lessons they had learned along the way. She spoke of the power of community, of the light that could overcome even the darkest of shadows. As she spoke, she noticed a change in the atmosphere. The fear that had once lingered in the village seemed to lift, replaced by a sense of unity and determination. The villagers listened intently, their faces reflecting the growing hope that Elara was instilling in them. When she finished, the crowd erupted into applause, their voices mingling in a chorus of support. An elderly man stepped forward, his eyes filled with warmth. "You have shown us the way, Elara. We are grateful for your courage and for the light you have brought back to our village." Lyra stepped up to speak, her voice strong. "We are all capable of great strength when we stand together. Fear will always exist, but we have the power to confront it." Joran smiled, his pride in their community evident. "Let us remember that the shadows are not just something we fight against. They are a part of our journey, and together we can turn our fears into strength." The villagers nodded, their expressions resolute. In that moment, Elara realized that they had not just defeated the darkness, they had transformed their fear into something powerful and unifying. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting a golden light over the village, Elara felt a warmth spread through her heart. They had created a safe haven, a community built on trust and resilience. But as the celebrations began, Elara still felt a lingering unease. What if the shadows returned in another form? The questions gnawed at her, even as laughter and joy filled the square. Days turned into weeks, and the village continued to thrive. They held regular gatherings, sharing stories and celebrating their victories over fear. Yet, Elara often found herself drawn to the edge of the forest, staring into the shadows, contemplating the delicate balance between light and dark. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, Elara ventured into the woods again. She found herself standing at the base of the ancient oak tree, the spot where their journey had begun. The air felt charged, as if something was about to shift. Suddenly, she heard a rustling in the bushes nearby. Heart racing, she turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows. It was the man they had encountered before, the one who had warned them about the shadows. "Elara," he said, his voice urgent. "I've been searching for you. The darkness is changing. It's more than just shadows now." "What do you mean?" Elara asked, dread pooling in her stomach. "It's evolving. The Black Sun is looking for new ways to infiltrate. It's searching for those who are vulnerable, those who doubt themselves. You must prepare." Elara felt a chill run down her spine. "But we thought we had defeated it." The man shook his head. "Defeating it was only the beginning. The Black Sun will never fully disappear. It feeds on fear and doubt, and as long as there is light, it will continue to find ways to return." "Then what do we do?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You must gather the villagers again. Share what you've learned. Help them understand that fear is a part of life, but it doesn't have to control them." Elara felt the weight of his words settle on her. "I will," she promised, a newfound determination igniting within her. As the man vanished back into the shadows, Elara turned and raced back to the village, ready to face the challenges ahead. They would confront the darkness together, not just as a battle against an enemy, but as a journey of self-discovery and resilience. She understood now that the true fight against the shadows lay within each individual. With courage and unity, they could withstand anything the Black Sun threw their way. Elara gathered the villagers in the square once more, a sense of urgency fueling her resolve. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that crept across the ground like fingers reaching for the light. She could feel the weight of their curiosity and concern as they gathered around her, anticipation hanging thick in the air. "Thank you all for coming," Elara began, her voice steady but tinged with an underlying tension. "I have something important to share. After our victory over the darkness, I thought we were safe, but I've learned that the Black Sun is evolving. It seeks new ways to infiltrate our hearts and minds." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, and Elara's heart raced as she caught sight of familiar faces filled with worry. She glanced at Lyra and Joran, who stood by her side, offering silent support. "We defeated the shadows within the Temple of Shadows," she continued, "but fear does not vanish simply because we have faced it. It hides, waiting for the right moment to strike." "Are we in danger again?" an elder woman called from the back, her voice quivering. Elara met her gaze, feeling the weight of her question. "We must be vigilant. The darkness feeds on our doubts, our fears. But together we have the strength to face it again. We must learn to recognize our vulnerabilities and confront them before they consume us." "Is there a way to stop it?" asked a young boy, his wide eyes reflecting a mix of fear and hope. "Yes," Elara replied, her determination shining through. "By sharing our fears and standing united, we can create a shield of light against the darkness. We need to build a support system, a way for us to communicate openly about our struggles." The crowd listened intently, the fear in their eyes beginning to shift toward resolve. Elara could sense a flicker of hope igniting within them. "Let's hold gatherings where we can talk, where we can share our stories. We can create a network of support to lift each other up and remind ourselves that we are not alone in this fight." Joran stepped forward, his voice strong and clear. "Fear thrives in isolation. When we hide our struggles, we give power to the darkness. But together, we can illuminate even the darkest corners of our hearts." Lyra added, "We must encourage one another, remind ourselves of our strength. The more we talk, the more we understand, and the less power the shadows will have over us." A wave of agreement washed over the villagers, their faces shifting from uncertainty to determination. They began to nod, whispers of support echoing through the crowd. Elara felt a surge of hope. Perhaps they could truly turn the tide against the darkness. As the gathering concluded, Elara felt the burden of fear lifting, replaced by a sense of purpose. They would create a sanctuary of light in their village, a place where everyone could share their struggles without fear of judgment. But as the sun set, casting a deep crimson hue across the sky, Elara couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, creeping closer as the darkness of night began to envelop the village. She could almost hear the whispers of the shadows, taunting her with their insidious promises. That night, Elara lay awake, the weight of her thoughts pressing down on her. She thought of the villagers, their determination shining through their fears. Yet, as the darkness deepened, she couldn't help but wonder how long they could hold on to that light. Suddenly, a knock on her door broke through her thoughts. Startled, she got up and opened it to find Joran standing there, his expression serious. "Can we talk?" he asked, stepping inside. "Of course," she replied, closing the door behind him. "What's on your mind?" Joran ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in his voice. "I've been thinking about what the man told you. The darkness is changing, and I can't shake the feeling that we need to be prepared for whatever comes next." Elara nodded, the weight of his words resonating within her. "I felt it too. I just hope that our efforts to unite the villagers will be enough. I don't want them to lose hope again." "They won't," Joran reassured her, his gaze steady. "We'll make sure of it. But we need a plan. If the Black Sun is seeking to exploit our vulnerabilities, we have to anticipate its moves." Elara's heart raced as she considered his words. "What do you propose?" "Training," he said decisively. "We need to prepare the villagers to confront their fears, both individually and as a group. We can create exercises to help them build resilience and learn to fight back against the shadows." "That's a great idea," Elara agreed, her spirits lifting. We could hold workshops to teach them how to channel their light and recognize the signs of encroaching darkness. As they discussed their ideas, Elara felt a renewed sense of purpose. They would not only defend their village but empower each other to confront their fears head-on. The community would be strong, united in their resolve to face whatever challenges lay ahead. But as their plans took shape, Elara couldn't shake the lingering feeling of dread. The darkness was watching, waiting for its opportunity to strike. She had to remain vigilant, for she knew that even the tiniest flicker of doubt could reignite the shadows. And so, as the moon cast its silvery glow over the village, Elara prepared for the challenges to come, determined to shield her community from the rising shadows that threatened to engulf them once again. The next morning, Elara and Joran set out to gather supplies for their workshops. As they walked through the village, they noticed a change in the atmosphere. The air was thick with anticipation, and the villagers were buzzing with whispers about the new plans. Children played together, laughter ringing out, while adults shared glances that spoke of newfound hope. "Look at them," Joran said, a smile creeping onto his face. "They're ready to take action." Elara felt a swell of pride. "Yes, but we have to ensure that we guide them properly. We need to create a safe environment for them to explore their fears." They reached the communal shed, a place filled with tools and supplies. As they rummaged through the various items, Elara's mind raced with ideas. She thought of activities that could help the villagers confront their inner shadows while building their resilience. "What about role-playing?" Elara suggested, turning to Joran. "We can create scenarios where they can face their fears in a controlled setting." "Great idea," Joran replied, nodding. "We can even introduce storytelling elements. Sharing their fears as stories could help them distance themselves from the emotions tied to them." As they worked together, Elara felt a spark of excitement igniting within her. They were not just preparing to confront the darkness, they were forging a new path for their community. One where they would no longer be victims but empowered individuals ready to fight back. By midday they had gathered materials: ropes for obstacle courses, masks for role-playing, and stones for the villagers to decorate with symbols of their fears. Elara envisioned a space where they could transform these fears into something tangible and manageable. With the preparations underway, Elara and Joran began spreading the word about the upcoming workshops. They explained the importance of confronting their fears and invited everyone to participate, regardless of age or background. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the village, Elara felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. The villagers were responding with enthusiasm, and excitement buzzed in the air. She could see the flicker of hope lighting their eyes. But deep down, Elara couldn't ignore the feeling of dread lurking just beneath the surface. The shadows had not disappeared, they were still out there, waiting for an opportunity. She knew they had to be prepared, for the darkness was cunning and would strike when they least expected it. That evening, as the stars twinkled overhead, Elara gathered her friends around a flickering fire. The warmth of the flames cast shadows that danced along the ground, and she felt a sense of comfort in their presence. "Tomorrow we'll start our workshops," she said, looking at Lyra and Joran. "I want to make sure we're all aligned in our approach. We need to support each other and the villagers." Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "We should lead by example. If we confront our own fears openly, it will encourage others to do the same." Elara appreciated her friend's insight. "Yes, let's share our stories of doubt and vulnerability. We can show them that we're all in this together." As they shared their own fears, Elara's fear of failure, Joran's fear of inadequacy, and Lyra's fear of losing those she loved, they felt a sense of camaraderie grow among them. The weight of their fears lightened as they spoke, and the shadows seemed to recede, if only for a moment. That night, Elara lay in bed, her heart full yet heavy. They were embarking on a new journey, one that would challenge them in ways they had yet to imagine. She wondered what fears lay buried within the villagers, waiting to be uncovered and confronted. But the deeper question lingered. Would they be strong enough to withstand the darkness that threatened to engulf them again? The next day, the village square transformed into a vibrant hub of activity. The workshops began with Alara leading a group of eager villagers, explaining the importance of confronting their fears. They formed a circle, each person holding a stone they had decorated with their fear written on it. "Today we will share these fears," Alara said, her voice calm yet assertive. "By naming them, we take away their power." One by one, villagers stepped forward, revealing their fears to the group. A young girl spoke of her fear of the dark, a farmer shared his fear of failing his family, and an elder confessed her fear of being forgotten. As each fear was named, Alara could feel the atmosphere shift, the collective energy transforming from uncertainty to empowerment. With each story shared, the villagers began to encourage one another, building a sense of community that resonated in their hearts. Alara watched, a sense of pride swelling within her. They were not just participants. They were warriors standing together against the encroaching shadows. Yet, as the sun began to set, a feeling of unease settled back over Alara. It was as if the shadows had sensed their unity and were plotting their return. She could feel the chill in the air, the stillness that followed the day's vibrant activities, and it set her nerves on edge. That night, as the villagers returned to their homes, Alara gathered with her friends again, their expressions reflecting a shared concern. "What if the darkness strikes while we're unprepared?" Lyra asked, her brow furrowed. Alara felt the weight of her words. "We can't let our guard down. We need to remain vigilant. Perhaps we should extend our workshops, introducing more practical skills for self-defense." Joran agreed. Training in physical resilience could be beneficial. "We need to empower the villagers not only mentally but also physically." With a renewed sense of purpose, they made plans for the following day. They would continue the workshops, but they would also introduce practical exercises to help the villagers build strength and confidence. As they prepared to disperse for the night, Alara felt a shiver run down her spine. The shadows were not gone. They were lurking, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. She glanced at her friends, each of them looking back with a shared determination. Together, they would face whatever the darkness had in store, united in their strength and resolve. The time for action was now, for the rising shadows were ever watchful, and they would not go down without a fight. The following day dawned bright and clear, the sunlight streaming through the trees and illuminating the village with a golden glow. As Alara and her friends prepared for the next round of workshops, an air of excitement pulsed through the community. Villagers of all ages gathered in the square, eager to participate in the activities that would help them confront their fears. "Today we'll build on what we started," Alara announced, her voice ringing out over the crowd. "We'll continue sharing our fears, and then we'll introduce physical activities to empower us. The darkness preys on our vulnerabilities, but together we can build our strength." She could see the nods of agreement from the villagers, their faces alight with determination. Alara felt a surge of hope. Perhaps they were on the brink of something transformative. As they formed a circle once more, Alara encouraged each person to speak about their fears. She shared her own fear of inadequacy, explaining how it had haunted her during their journey. "But by speaking it aloud, I begin to reclaim my power," she concluded, looking around at the supportive faces of her friends and the villagers. The stories flowed freely, a torrent of vulnerability and strength intertwining. A young man confessed his fear of not being strong enough to protect his family, while a mother spoke of her worry that she wouldn't be able to guide her children through the dark times ahead. Each confession resonated with the crowd, and as they listened, the bond among them deepened. Once the emotional sharing concluded, Alara transitioned to the physical exercises. "Now we will learn to channel our energy into strength," she explained, leading them through stretches and warm-ups. "The more we understand our bodies, the more resilient we become against the shadows." Joran took charge of demonstrating basic self-defense moves, showcasing how to stand firm and counteract fear with physical presence. The villagers watched intently, mimicking his movements with determination. Ilara joined in, demonstrating techniques alongside him, her heart swelling with pride as she observed the community's engagement. Lyra led a group of children, teaching them how to project their voices and use chants to build confidence. "Our voices are powerful tools," she said, guiding them through rhythmic chants that echoed in the square. "When we speak together, we create a wall of sound that can repel any darkness." As the day wore on, the villagers began to express their newfound strength. They laughed and cheered as they practiced self-defense techniques, their earlier fears transforming into camaraderie. Ilara marveled at the sight, a community once gripped by fear now embracing their power. But as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the ground, Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. The air grew heavy as if the darkness was drawing closer. She glanced at Joran, who had noticed the shift as well. Their earlier confidence faltered momentarily, but they quickly masked their concern, continuing to lead the workshops. By the time twilight descended upon the village, a sense of accomplishment hung in the air. The villagers had embraced the day, forging connections and building resilience. They celebrated their progress with laughter and stories, but Ilara remained on guard, aware that the darkness would not easily be deterred. That evening, as they gathered around the fire once more, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding. She noticed the flickering flames casting dancing shadows, reminding her that the battle was far from over. "I feel like we've made significant progress," Lyra said, her voice filled with optimism. "The villagers are stronger now, and we've built a sense of community that can withstand the shadows." Ilara nodded, but the knot in her stomach remained. "Yes, but we must not let our guard down. The darkness is cunning, and it thrives on our overconfidence. We need to prepare for its return." Joran leaned forward, his expression serious. "We should consider creating a watch system. If we can keep an eye on the surroundings, we might sense the shadows approaching before they strike." Ilara felt a rush of agreement. "That's a great idea. We can train a group of villagers to keep watch during the night, alerting us if they notice anything unusual." As they discussed their plans, Ilara felt a sense of camaraderie blooming among them. They were not alone in this fight. They had each other to rely on, and that made all the difference. But just as they were about to finalize their plans, a distant howl echoed through the night, sending a wave of unease through the group. The sound was low and haunting, reverberating in the stillness. "What was that?" Lyra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ilara felt her heart race. "I don't know, but it didn't sound friendly." Joran stood, his eyes scanning the darkness that surrounded them. "We need to be alert. If the darkness is returning, we must be ready to defend ourselves." The group quickly organized themselves, forming a tighter circle around the fire as the chilling howl rang out again, closer this time. Ilara's heart pounded in her chest, a primal instinct kicking in. They had prepared, but nothing could truly ready them for the fear that clawed at the edges of their minds. The villagers exchanged nervous glances, and Ilara felt the tension rise among them. The shadows were stirring, their presence creeping back into their lives. "Stay close," Ilara instructed, her voice steady but firm. "Remember what we practiced. We are stronger together." As they huddled around the flickering fire, Ilara felt a sense of determination wash over her. They had come too far to back down now. The shadows would not take away the light they had fought so hard to cultivate. But deep down, she knew that the coming confrontation would test their unity and strength in ways they could not yet imagine. The darkness was rising, and they would need every ounce of courage they had to face it. The howl echoed again, reverberating through the still night, and the fire flickered in response, as if it too sensed the impending danger. Ilara could see the fear in the villagers' eyes, and she knew she had to rally them, to remind them of the strength they had begun to cultivate. "Let's form a plan," she urged, her voice steady. "We'll create a perimeter around the village. Joran and I will lead a group to patrol the edges, while the rest of you stay alert here. Should we prepare weapons? A villager asked, his brow furrowed in concern. Elara thought for a moment. We can use what we have, sticks, stones, anything that can help us defend ourselves. Remember, it's not just about fighting. It's about standing our ground and not letting the darkness take our strength. As the villagers began to gather makeshift weapons, Elara felt a surge of determination wash over her. They had spent days building their confidence and skills, and now it was time to put that to the test. Joran moved through the crowd, organizing the villagers into groups, explaining the importance of remaining calm and focused. Lyra was by Elara's side, her expression one of fierce resolve. We've trained for this moment, Elara. We can face whatever comes our way. Elara nodded, grateful for her friend's unwavering spirit. Yes, together we're stronger. Let's show the darkness that we refuse to be its victims any longer. With their plan in place, Elara, Joran, and a small group of villagers ventured out into the night, flashlights in hand, illuminating the path ahead. The air was thick with tension, the only sounds being the crunch of leaves underfoot and the distant howls that seemed to draw nearer. Stay close, Elara instructed, her heart racing as they approached the perimeter of the village. We need to be vigilant. As they moved deeper into the woods, the darkness felt alive around them. The trees loomed tall and shadowy, their branches swaying gently in the night breeze. Elara's senses heightened, each sound amplifying the sense of unease. Suddenly, a rustling noise came from the bushes to their right. The group froze, their breaths held tight in their chests. Elara signaled for silence, her heart pounding as she focused on the sounds surrounding them. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged, a small creature with bright eyes, darting away as quickly as it appeared. Elara released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, a mix of relief and tension washing over her. It was just a fox, she whispered, but her heart still raced. They continued their patrol, checking the boundaries of the village. Every time the wind shifted, Elara's pulse quickened, but they found nothing amiss. Just as they were about to return, the howl rang out again, sharper and more menacing than before. This way, Joran shouted, pointing toward the sound. The group turned, instinctively moving as one toward the noise. They stumbled upon a clearing where the moonlight filtered down, illuminating a group of shadowy figures gathered at the edge of the woods. The creatures stood tall and twisted, their forms shifting as if made from the very darkness that surrounded them. "What are those?" a villager whispered, eyes wide with terror. Elara's heart sank. "Shadows. They've come to test us." She could feel the fear radiating from her companions, but she knew they had to stand firm. "Remember our training. We faced them together." Elara stepped forward, her voice ringing out above the fear. "We are not afraid of you. You will not take our light." The shadows shifted, their forms flickering as if confused by her words. For a moment, Elara felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps they could repel the darkness with their collective strength. But then the creatures lunged forward, and the air crackled with malevolence. The villagers scrambled into formation, their makeshift weapons raised, ready to defend their home. With a deep breath, Elara remembered the chants Lyra had taught the children. "Together," she shouted, leading the group in a chorus of strength. "We are one. We are strong." The sounds of their voices clashed with the howls of the shadows, creating a cacophony that filled the clearing. For a moment, it felt as though their unity could hold the darkness at bay. But the shadows pressed closer, their forms distorting and writhing as they pushed against the light of the villagers' flashlights. Elara's heart raced, fear clenching her gut. "Stay focused," she called out, her voice rising above the din. "Don't let them break our line." The villagers held their ground, their voices merging into a powerful chant that resonated with the very essence of their determination. The shadows hesitated, caught off guard by the strength of their collective spirit. But Elara knew this battle was far from over. The darkness was relentless, and their fight had only just begun. The cacophony of voices surged into the night, filling the clearing with a resonating energy that pushed against the encroaching shadows. Elara felt the pulse of hope within her as she stood at the front of the group, leading them in their chant, each word an affirmation of their strength and unity. Together, we are one. We are strong. The shadows faltered, their forms wavering in the light, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed as if the darkness might retreat. But the howls grew louder, reverberating through the trees, and the shadows coiled and twisted, regrouping with a ferocity that sent a shiver down Elara's spine. "Hold the line," Joran shouted, his voice firm and unwavering. The villagers tightened their formation, standing shoulder to shoulder, their hearts racing with adrenaline and fear. Elara glanced at her companions, their faces illuminated by the flickering lights. She could see their determination, a fire kindling within them that mirrored her own. They were fighting. Not just for themselves, but for the future of their village, for the children who had danced and sung earlier in the day, for the lives they had built. Just then, one of the shadows lunged forward, a dark blur that struck toward the front line. A villager cried out, swinging a makeshift weapon in defense. Elara watched in horror as the shadow twisted around the villager, its dark tendrils wrapping tightly before it pulled back, dragging the terrified villager into the depths of the forest. "Stop!" Elara shouted, the terror gripping her heart as she felt the weight of their situation bear down upon her. "We won't let you take anyone else." Fueled by desperation, Elara pressed forward, her flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. She felt the heat of the villagers' chants surrounding her, a shield of light pushing back against the shadows. With each step, she channeled her fear into strength, her voice ringing out over the chaos. "Stay together. Focus on the light," she commanded, moving to rally her friends and the villagers. They formed a tighter circle, their combined light growing brighter, forcing the shadows to retreat momentarily. But as they stood firm, Elara could see the shadows gathering strength, their forms swirling with rage. "We need to find a way to dispel them," she urged Joran, who nodded in agreement. "Let's use the chants. If we combine our voices with the light, we might create a barrier," Joran suggested, his eyes alight with determination. Elara felt a surge of hope. "Yes, if we focus our energy and our voices, we can amplify our strength." They turned to the villagers, calling out for them to join in the chants again, this time raising their voices higher, their collective spirit intertwining with the glow of their flashlights. "We are one. We are strong." The shadows writhed in response, their forms flickering as they felt the power of the united villagers. Elara could sense the fear begin to ebb, replaced by a fierce resolve that spread through the ranks. As the villagers chanted louder, the darkness recoiled, their shadowy figures beginning to dissipate. The clearing felt electric, charged with energy as Elara felt the rhythm of the chants resonating in her heart. But just as it seemed they were gaining the upper hand, a deeper growl emerged from the shadows, and a massive figure stepped forward, towering over the others. It was unlike any of the shadows they had faced, a creature formed from pure darkness, its eyes glowing like embers, seething with malevolence. "Foolish mortals," it snarled, its voice echoing like thunder. "You think your light can banish me?" Elara's heart raced, but she refused to show her fear. "We are not afraid of you. We have fought to reclaim our strength, and we will not back down." The creature lunged, its dark claws reaching for Elara, but in that moment, something deep within her stirred. A flicker of light, a connection to the love and hope she had witnessed in her village. "Together," she shouted, feeling the villagers rally behind her, their voices intertwining in a powerful chorus. "Together we will not be broken." The combined energy surged forward like a wave, colliding with the creature, causing it to stagger back. The villagers pressed on, their chants melding with the light of their flashlights, illuminating the darkness like a beacon. Elara felt a warmth envelop her as the shadows began to dissipate, the larger creature howling in rage as it was drawn back into the darkness. The light grew brighter, a radiance of hope and unity, engulfing the clearing and pushing the shadows back into the depths of the forest. With one final push, the creature let out a deafening roar, and the shadows collapsed into nothingness. The night fell silent, the air clearing as the weight of fear lifted from the villagers' shoulders. Elara stood breathless, her heart pounding, the realization washing over her. They had done it. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. The villagers erupted into cheers, their faces alight with triumph and relief. Elara felt tears of joy prick at her eyes as she embraced Joran and Lyra, their friendship solidified in the face of adversity. "Together we are unstoppable," Elara said, her voice thick with emotion. As they made their way back to the village, Elara glanced back at the forest, where the shadows had retreated. She knew that the darkness would always linger, but now they had the strength to face it. And with each step, the light within them glowed brighter, a testament to their resilience and unity in the face of fear. As dawn broke over the village, the first rays of sunlight pierced through the lingering shadows of the night, illuminating the faces of the villagers gathered in the square. A collective sense of relief washed over them, a tangible aura of triumph that felt almost electric. Elara stood among them, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude as she reflected on the night's events. "Today we celebrate our victory," she announced, her voice ringing out across the square. "We have faced our fears and stood united against the darkness. Together we are stronger." The villagers erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the crisp morning air. Elara could see the joy on their faces, the weight of fear lifted as they embraced the dawn of a new day. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes sparkling. "Let us not forget the lessons we've learned. We've discovered our strength lies not just in our physical abilities, but in our connections to one another." Elara nodded in agreement, her heart full. "Indeed. Our unity is our greatest weapon against the shadows. We must continue to support one another and share our fears, for it is in our vulnerability that we find strength." The villagers began to gather around, sharing stories of their own experiences during the confrontation with the darkness. Each tale was laced with emotion, fear, bravery, love, and resilience, painting a vivid picture of their collective journey. As they shared their stories, Elara noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The villagers no longer spoke of fear. Instead, they celebrated their courage, their newfound strength. They were not just survivors. They were a community bound together by their shared experiences. Joran stepped forward, holding a simple wooden staff he had carved during the night. "I want to propose something," he said, his voice steady. "Let's create a council, a group that can continue to lead and support our village as we navigate the challenges ahead. We can ensure that no one faces the darkness alone." Elara felt a spark of inspiration. "That's a wonderful idea. A council would allow us to harness our strengths and ensure everyone's voice is heard. Together we can build a future free from fear." The villagers cheered in agreement, and Elara could feel the momentum building around the idea. They began to discuss the structure of the council, how they could ensure representation from all parts of the village. As the sun rose higher, casting warm light across the square, Elara's heart brimmed with hope. They were not merely recovering from a crisis, they were forging a new path forward, one built on trust, resilience, and community. But as the celebration continued, Elara felt a flicker of doubt. What if the shadows returned? What if the darkness was merely lying in wait, ready to strike again? She glanced at Joran and Lyra, their faces alight with enthusiasm, and pushed the thought aside. They had faced the darkness and won, and that was what mattered. With renewed purpose, Elara joined the villagers in their celebrations, their laughter and joy filling the air. They danced and sang, their spirits unshackled from the weight of fear. But deep down, she knew they must remain vigilant. The shadows could return, and they had to be prepared. As evening descended, Elara stood at the edge of the village, gazing out at the forest where the shadows had retreated. The sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, a breathtaking reminder of the beauty that existed even in the darkest of times. Suddenly, she felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Joran, his expression serious yet warm. "Are you all right, Elara?" he asked gently. Elara took a deep breath, allowing the sunset's warmth to wash over her. "I'm just reflecting on everything. I feel so grateful, but I can't shake this feeling of uncertainty." Joran nodded, understanding in his eyes. "It's natural to feel that way. We faced a great challenge and it's okay to be cautious. But remember, we're not alone anymore. We have each other, and together we can face whatever comes next." Elara smiled, comforted by his words. "You're right. Together we can find a way forward no matter what challenges we face." As night fell and the stars twinkled above, Elara felt a sense of peace settle within her. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, and as long as they held on to their unity, they could withstand anything. Little did they know, the true test was still ahead, lurking just beyond the edge of the woods, waiting for the opportune moment to strike again. The village pulsed with energy as the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving trails of gold and purple streaking across the sky. Elara felt the warmth of the celebrations wrap around her like a blanket, a welcome contrast to the chill of fear that had once gripped her heart. As night fell, the villagers gathered around the central fire, laughter and music mingling in the air. Lyra and Joran were at the forefront, sharing stories of their bravery, their voices rising in joyous exuberance. Elara joined in the celebration, her heart lifting with each shared smile and story, yet the lingering doubt still cast a shadow over her thoughts. "Look," Lyra called out, her eyes shining with delight as she pointed toward the sky. "The stars are brighter than ever tonight." Elara tilted her head back, mesmerized by the brilliance overhead. It was as if the stars themselves were celebrating their victory, twinkling with newfound vigor. Yet, a small voice in her mind whispered of caution. The shadows had not been entirely vanquished. They had only retreated, and Elara knew that their presence was still a threat. "Let's make a wish on the brightest star," Lyra suggested, her face radiant with enthusiasm. The villagers began to gather, raising their hands and whispering their hopes into the night. Elara felt the warmth of their hopes surround her, but the weight of her concerns tugged at her heart. As the night wore on, Elara watched her friends laugh and dance, their spirits high. It was a moment of pure joy, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just beyond the edges of their celebration. She noticed a flicker of movement in the trees, but when she squinted into the darkness, nothing stirred. "Are you all right, Elara?" Joran asked, his voice filled with genuine concern as he approached her. She turned to him, forcing a smile. "I'm just thinking. It's hard not to wonder what lies ahead after such a night." Joran nodded, understanding her fears. "We can't let uncertainty overshadow our joy. We've overcome a great darkness today, and we should celebrate that." Elara appreciated his words, but the memory of the towering shadow, the deep growl that had reverberated through her bones, lingered in her mind. "I know, but we must remain vigilant. The shadows may still be out there." Just then, a villager approached, his face flushed with excitement. "Elara, Joran, you have to come see this." Curiosity piqued, Elara followed the villager to the edge of the celebration, where a small gathering had formed. They crowded around an object lying on the ground, half hidden in the shadows. "What is it?" Elara asked, her heart racing as she pushed through the crowd. The villagers parted, revealing a large stone, etched with intricate symbols that glimmered faintly in the firelight. Elara knelt down, studying the carvings closely. "Where did this come from?" she asked, her mind racing with possibilities. "It just appeared out of nowhere," one villager exclaimed, awe evident in his voice. "We were celebrating and then, there it was." Elara felt a chill run down her spine as she traced the symbols with her fingers. They were ancient, reminiscent of the stories the elders had told of a time long past, of gods and magic that had once walked among them. "This isn't just a stone," she murmured, her mind racing. "It could be a message or a warning." Joran leaned closer, his brow furrowed in concentration. What does it say? Ilara scanned the symbols, piecing together the fragments of knowledge she had gleaned from her studies of the old tales. It speaks of balance, of light and darkness, and warns of a disturbance that could awaken the ancient shadows. The villagers exchanged uneasy glances, the atmosphere shifting from celebration to uncertainty. Ilara felt the weight of their fears settle around her, a heavy blanket of doubt. "What do we do?" a villager asked, her voice trembling. "We need to understand this stone and what it means," Ilara replied firmly, though her heart raced. "If the shadows are truly returning, we must be prepared." As the villagers murmured amongst themselves, Ilara turned to Joran and Lyra. "We should consult the elders. They may have knowledge about these symbols. If we are to face the darkness again, we need to be ready." Joran nodded, determination in his eyes. "I'll gather a group to seek out the elders. We can't let fear control us. We will face this together." With renewed purpose, Ilara and her friends moved to organize a plan. The celebration faded into the background as they focused on the task ahead, their minds now occupied with understanding the stone and its implications. But as Ilara glanced back at the clearing, the laughter of the villagers felt distant, as if the shadows were already creeping back into their hearts. The air was thick with tension as Ilara, Joran, and Lyra gathered the villagers, preparing to seek the elders' counsel. The festivities of the previous night seemed a distant memory, overshadowed by the ominous discovery of the stone. Ilara led the way, her heart pounding as they made their way to the elders' grove, a place imbued with history and the wisdom of generations. The path wound through the trees, the sunlight filtering through the leaves, creating dappled patterns on the forest floor. Yet, despite the beauty surrounding them, a sense of foreboding clung to Ilara, tightening around her like a vine. "What do you think the stone means?" Lyra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not sure," Ilara replied, casting a glance back at the villagers who followed closely behind. "But if it's warning us about the shadows, we need to take it seriously. We can't afford to ignore it." As they approached the grove, the ancient trees towered above them, their gnarled branches intertwined like the fingers of wise old giants. The elders were often found here, surrounded by the energy of the earth, where they connected with the spirits of their ancestors. Ilara reached the clearing and found the elders gathered, their faces lined with age and wisdom. They sat in a circle, their expressions serious as they looked up at the approaching group. "Elders," Ilara called out, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. "We have come seeking your wisdom." The eldest of the group, a woman named Mira, nodded gravely. "We have sensed a disturbance in the air, young ones. Speak of what troubles you." Ilara stepped forward, her breath steadying as she explained the events of the previous night, the battle against the shadows and their discovery of the stone. As she recounted the story, she could see the elders' expressions harden, their eyes narrowing as they exchanged knowing glances. "The stone you found is no mere artifact," Mira said, her voice low and reverberating with authority. "It is a remnant of the old magic, a warning from the ancients. It speaks of a time when balance between light and darkness was disrupted, allowing shadows to seep into our world." Ilara's heart sank. "So the shadows are returning? What can we do to stop them?" "The first step is understanding what has caused this disturbance," Mira replied, her gaze piercing. "We must look back to the stories of our ancestors and uncover the truth hidden within." Another elder, a man with a long white beard, chimed in. "Long ago there was a great battle between the forces of light and darkness. The light prevailed, but the darkness was not destroyed. Instead, it was sealed away, bound by the strength of unity among the people." Ilara exchanged glances with Joran and Lyra, her heart racing as the implications of their words sank in. If the balance is disrupted, could the shadows break free? "Yes," Mira said solemnly. "And if they do, they will not come alone. The darkness will bring forth creatures born of fear and despair, seeking to consume all that is light. A murmur spread through the gathered villagers, a ripple of anxiety as they contemplated the threat looming over them. "What do we need to do?" Joran asked, stepping forward, his voice strong and unwavering. "We will do whatever it takes to protect our village." Mira nodded appreciatively. "You must gather the villagers, share this knowledge, and unite as one. The strength of your community is the key to maintaining balance. But first, you must uncover the truth of the stone, its origin and the history it holds. Seek out the place where the shadows first broke free, the old ruins at the edge of the forest." Ilara's heart raced at the mention of the ruins. She had heard the tales whispered among the villagers, stories of a place abandoned long ago, a site where darkness had once seeped into their world. "We will go," she vowed, glancing at Joran and Lyra, their determination mirrored in her eyes. The elders nodded, their approval a comforting weight on Ilara's shoulders. "But be cautious," Mira warned. "The path to the ruins is treacherous, and the shadows may be watching. Trust in one another, and do not let fear guide your steps." With a newfound sense of purpose, Ilara turned to the villagers who stood watching, their faces a mixture of fear and resolve. "We have a plan. We need to gather supplies and prepare for a journey to the ruins. It is time to face the darkness head-on." The villagers exchanged glances and slowly, one by one, they nodded in agreement. Ilara felt a surge of hope wash over her as she saw their determination solidify. They were ready to stand together against the shadows, united in purpose. As they made their way back to the village, Ilara felt a flicker of excitement mixed with apprehension. They were on the brink of something monumental, a journey that would not only test their courage but also their bonds as a community. But deep down, a whisper of doubt lingered, a reminder that the shadows had not been vanquished. They were still out there, waiting, and the true battle was yet to come. The villagers worked swiftly, driven by a collective sense of urgency. The air buzzed with energy as they gathered supplies for the journey to the ruins. Ilara moved among them, her heart swelling with pride at the determination radiating from her friends and neighbors. Each villager understood that their fate was intertwined, and they could no longer live in the shadow of fear. As night fell once more, a chill settled over the village. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie light over their preparations. Ilara found herself standing beside a large oak tree at the edge of the clearing, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. She took a moment to breathe deeply, allowing the scent of earth and wood to ground her. The rustle of leaves whispered reminders of the past, a gentle push toward the courage she needed. "Are you ready for this?" Joran asked, his voice steady yet tinged with concern. He approached her, his presence a comforting balm against the uncertainty swirling within her. Ilara nodded, though doubt still fluttered in her chest like a trapped bird. "I think so. We must do this. If there's a chance to stop the shadows, we have to take it." "Then let's gather everyone together before we leave," Joran suggested. "We need to remind them of our strength and the bond we share." They quickly assembled the villagers around the central fire, its flames dancing in the night, casting flickering shadows that reminded Ilara of their looming threat. The faces of her friends illuminated by the firelight were determined, yet she could see the worry etched into their features. Ilara stepped forward, raising her voice above the crackling flames. "Thank you all for coming tonight. As you know, we are about to embark on a journey to the ruins at the edge of the forest. We do this not just for ourselves but for everyone in our village. Together, we will face the darkness that threatens our home." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Ilara felt her heart lift. The elders have shared with us the history of the shadows and the importance of unity. We must stand together not just in this battle, but as a community now and always. Lyra stepped up beside Ilara, her voice ringing clear. "We've overcome challenges before and we will do so again. Remember that we have the strength of our friendships and our shared stories to guide us. No matter what we face, we will not be alone." As the villagers nodded and rallied around her, Ilara felt a renewed sense of hope blossom within her. They were not just friends. They were a family bound by shared experiences, struggles, and victories. Together they could withstand the shadows. Now let's prepare for the journey ahead, Joran said, his tone resolute. We need to leave at dawn while the light is still with us. We will bring the torches, food, and any supplies that might aid us in our search. As the villagers dispersed to finalize their preparations, Ilara and Joran exchanged a glance, an unspoken understanding passing between them. They were determined to face whatever awaited them at the ruins, but as Ilara turned to walk away, a chill crept down her spine. The shadows felt closer than ever, an almost tangible presence lurking just beyond the edges of their fires. That night, sleep eluded Ilara as she lay in her bed, the weight of uncertainty heavy on her mind. She stared up at the ceiling, her thoughts a whirlwind of what lay ahead. Could they truly face the darkness? What if they were not prepared? With a soft sigh, she rose from her bed and stepped outside. The night air was cool against her skin, a gentle reminder of the world around her. She walked toward the edge of the village, drawn by an inexplicable urge. As she reached the border of the forest, she paused, gazing into the darkness that enveloped the trees. The moonlight barely penetrated the canopy, creating a shroud of mystery. In that moment, she felt an unsettling pull, as if the shadows were beckoning her. Ilara, a voice called softly from behind her. It was Lyra, her friend, approaching with cautious steps. "What are you doing out here?" "I needed some air," Ilara replied, forcing a smile. "Just thinking about what's to come." Lyra stepped closer, concern etched on her features. "You're worried, aren't you?" Ilara nodded, her heart heavy. "What if we're not strong enough? What if we fail?" "Then we'll try again," Lyra said, her voice firm. "We've already faced so much together, and we've always found a way. You've led us through darkness before. Don't doubt yourself now." Her words ignited a flicker of determination in Ilara's heart. "You're right. We've always found a way because we have each other. Thank you, Lyra." As they stood side by side, gazing into the depths of the forest, Ilara felt the bond between them strengthen, a tether of hope in the face of uncertainty. "Whatever happens, we will face it together," Lyra assured her. Ilara took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. "Together," she echoed, feeling the weight of fear lift slightly from her shoulders. As dawn approached, they returned to the village, ready to gather their friends for the journey ahead. Ilara felt a sense of purpose settle within her. They were not just heading into the darkness, they were heading toward the truth. With the first light of dawn painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Ilara gathered with the villagers at the edge of the forest. The air was crisp, and the sounds of chirping birds filled the atmosphere, creating a contrast to the gravity of their task ahead. Each villager wore a determined expression, their faces set with resolve as they prepared for the journey to the ruins. Ilara stood at the front, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "Thank you all for being here," she said, her voice steady and loud enough to carry across the gathering. "Today we embark on a journey to uncover the truth about the shadows and the disturbance threatening our home. We are stronger together, and we will face whatever challenges come our way." The villagers responded with murmurs of agreement, their faces illuminated by the rising sun. With a shared sense of purpose, they gathered their supplies, torches, food, and tools, and set off into the forest, the path ahead winding through the towering trees that seemed to close in around them. As they walked, the atmosphere shifted. The further they ventured into the forest, the quieter it became. The chirping of birds faded, replaced by an oppressive silence that weighed heavily on Ilara's heart. Each step felt laden with the history of what lay ahead, and the shadows whispered at the edges of her mind. "What do you think we will find?" Lyra asked, falling into step beside Ilara. "I don't know," Ilara admitted, glancing at her friend. "But we need to be prepared for anything. The elders warned us of the darkness and the creatures that may awaken." Joran joined them, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We'll face it together. Whatever it is, we've trained for this moment." We've seen the darkness before and we've prevailed. Elara nodded, drawing strength from their words. As they delved deeper into the forest, the path became overgrown, the trees twisting and turning as if they were trying to shield something hidden within. Elara could feel the tension rising, an electric current of unease that coursed through the air. After what felt like hours, they reached a clearing, and in the center lay the ruins, crumbling stones covered in moss, remnants of a time long past. Elara's heart raced as she approached, the weight of history heavy upon her. The air was thick with anticipation, and a sense of foreboding hung over them like a storm cloud. "Be on guard," Joran cautioned as they stepped into the ruins. "Stay close and watch each other's backs." As they ventured further, the group spread out, carefully examining the remnants of the old structure. Elara ran her fingers along the stones, feeling the rough texture and the stories etched into the surface. She sensed the power that lingered here, a connection to the past that sent shivers down her spine. "Look," Lyra called out, her voice cutting through the silence. She stood near a large stone tablet, its surface covered in the same intricate symbols they had seen before. This must be what the elders spoke of. Elara hurried over, her heart racing with excitement. "Let me see." As she studied the tablet, the symbols began to resonate with her, memories of her studies flooding back. "This speaks of balance, of a sacred bond between light and darkness," Elara murmured, her fingers tracing the lines. "But it also warns of a great disturbance that could awaken the shadows. We need to find a way to restore that balance." Just then, a low growl echoed from the depths of the ruins, causing the hairs on Elara's neck to stand on end. The ground trembled slightly beneath her feet, and shadows began to slither along the walls, dark tendrils reaching out like grasping fingers. "Get ready," Joran shouted, his voice sharp with urgency. The villagers instinctively grouped together, forming a protective circle around Elara and Lyra. From the darkness emerged a creature, its form shifting and indistinct, cloaked in shadows that flickered like flame. Its eyes glowed a menacing red, filled with malice and hunger. Elara felt a wave of fear wash over her, but she stood her ground, drawing strength from her friends. "This is what we feared," Lyra whispered, clutching Elara's arm. "We have to fight." Elara nodded, her resolve hardening. "We can do this. We're not alone." As the creature lunged forward, the villagers sprang into action, their torches blazing brightly. Elara focused on the tablet, the symbols illuminating in her mind. "We have to restore the balance," she cried, channeling her energy toward the stone. The symbols began to glow, pulsing with light that pushed back against the shadows. The creature hesitated, snarling in anger, but the villagers stood firm, the light from their torches combining to create a protective barrier. "Together," Elara urged, her voice rising above the chaos. "We must stand united." As the villagers focused their energy, the light intensified, enveloping the ruins in a warm, golden glow. The shadows recoiled, hissing in rage, but the light surged forth, breaking through the darkness that threatened to consume them. With one final push, Elara concentrated all her strength into the symbols. A wave of brilliant light erupted from the tablet, sweeping across the clearing, engulfing the creature in its brilliance. The shadows writhed and screamed, fighting against the radiant energy, but they could not withstand the combined force of the villagers' resolve. With a final earth-shaking roar, the creature disintegrated into a flurry of shadows, dissipating into the air like smoke caught in a breeze. The oppressive darkness lifted, replaced by the warm glow of the sun filtering through the trees, bathing the ruins in light. Elara stood trembling, the weight of what had just transpired settling heavily upon her. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but at what cost? The villagers erupted into cheers, their voices ringing through the forest. Elara turned to Joran and Lyra, tears of relief spilling down her cheeks. "We did it," she exclaimed, her heart swelling with pride. But as she looked around, the shadows were still whispering at the edges of her mind, a reminder that their battle was far from over. They had won this fight, but the darkness could return. "We need to guard this place," Elara said, her voice steadying. "The balance must be protected, and we must learn from this experience." Joran nodded, determination burning in his eyes. "We will create a watch, a community dedicated to preserving the light and guarding against the shadows." As they gathered together, a sense of unity enveloped them. They had faced the darkness and stood firm, forging bonds that would carry them through future trials. Together they would remain vigilant, for the light was worth fighting for. With the sun shining brightly overhead, Elara felt a renewed sense of hope blossom within her. The shadows had been pushed back, and their victory marked the beginning of a new chapter. One where the villagers would stand united against any darkness that threatened to invade their world. As the villagers returned to their home, the sun hung high in the sky, casting a warm glow over the landscape. The air was filled with laughter and the sounds of celebration, but Elara felt a weight still resting on her heart. The memory of the darkness lingered, a reminder of the challenges they had faced and the lessons learned. In the days that followed, the villagers began to rebuild. They repaired the damage done during the Shadow's assault and established a watch over the ruins, a sacred space that would serve as a reminder of their strength and unity. Elara took her place among the leaders, working alongside Joran and Lyra to create plans that would ensure their village was prepared for any future threat. One evening, as Elara sat with her friends by the edge of the forest, she reflected on their journey. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple, and the beauty of the moment reminded her of the resilience of their spirit. "Do you remember the first time we saw the black sun?" Lyra asked, her voice filled with nostalgia. "We were so frightened, yet here we are, standing together against the darkness." Elara smiled, recalling that fateful day when fear had gripped their hearts. "We've come so far since then. I never imagined we could face such challenges and emerge stronger." Joran nodded in agreement. "It's our bond that made the difference. Together we can face anything." As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, Elara felt a spark of inspiration ignite within her. What if we shared our story with others? We can teach them about the balance between light and dark, and how to face their own fears. Lyra's eyes lit up. "That's a brilliant idea. We can gather the children and the elders and share our experiences. They need to know that the darkness can be fought. And we can create a festival to celebrate our victory and the new bonds we've formed," Joran added, his enthusiasm infectious. "A day where everyone can come together in joy and remembrance." With a sense of purpose guiding them, the trio began planning their festival, determined to celebrate their unity and resilience. As the days turned into weeks, they worked tirelessly, inviting villagers from neighboring communities to join in their festivities. On the day of the festival, the village was alive with color and laughter. Banners adorned the trees, and the air was filled with the scent of fresh bread and flowers. Elara stood at the center of the gathering, her heart swelling with pride as she looked around at the smiling faces of her friends and neighbors. "Today we celebrate not just our victory over the darkness, but the strength of our community," she announced to the crowd, her voice ringing clear. "We have faced fears together, and through unity we have found hope." As the sun set and the stars began to twinkle above, the villagers shared stories of bravery and resilience, creating a tapestry of memories that bound them closer together. Elara felt the warmth of their laughter and camaraderie, a reminder that they were never alone. That night, as the stars sparkled in the sky, Elara climbed to the edge of the forest once more. She looked up at the heavens, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. The black sun was gone, but its memory served as a powerful reminder of the darkness they had faced, and the light they had forged in its wake. In that moment, Elara understood that while the shadows may return, she and her friends would be ready. They would stand together, guarding the balance between light and dark, and facing whatever challenges lay ahead. As dawn approached, Elara turned back to the village, her heart filled with hope for the future. They had weathered the storm, and together they would continue to thrive. The story of their courage would live on, not just in their hearts but in the hearts of those they would inspire. And so, as the sun rose over the horizon, Ilara knew that a new dawn had begun, one filled with promise, unity, and the unwavering belief that together they could overcome anything.